Chapter 1341. In addition to Li Yuanji, there was also Chun Yuanyuan, who was considered a femme fatale by all the men in the world. He had been so busy recently that he had no time to take care of them. He didn't know if anything had happened to the two women in the palace. With this thought, Song Qingshu could no longer suppress his worry. Even though the sun had not set, he couldn't care so much. He immediately left and quietly sneaked into the palace. After all, it was not nighttime. Now that he wanted to enter the palace in broad daylight, even with Song Qingshu's peerless qigong, he had to be careful. Fortunately, there were not many people in the cold palace, so he managed to sneak in safely. I wonder how they are getting along. That girl Yuanji is weird and has never liked Chun Yuanyuan and her mother. Chun Yuanyuan doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Could she have been bullied badly by her? Song Qingshu couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Chun Yuanyuan. But when he arrived at their residence, he couldn't help but be stunned because the scene in front of him was very different from what he had imagined. Chun Yuanyuan was not crying in the corner with bruises all over her body, and Li Yuanji was not holding a whip and laughing wildly in front of her like a witch. The two women were sitting quietly opposite each other. Chun Yuanyuan was as beautiful and elegant as ever, and the always lively Li Yuanji had transformed into a quiet beauty. Curious, Song Qingshu took a few steps closer and found that the two women were playing Go. Li Yuanji held a black piece in her hand and was about to move it several times, but she eventually retracted it. She gently bit her finger and frowned in thought. She looked very cute. Chun Yuanyuan was still looking at her with a smile, not at all impatient. Suddenly, she saw Song Qingshu next to her and couldn't help but tremble. Because her back was facing them, Li Yuanji didn't notice Song Qingshu at first. It wasn't until she noticed the change in Chun Yuanyuan's expression that she turned her head in confusion. When she saw Song Qingshu clearly, her furrowed eyebrows instantly relaxed. Big brother Song, Li Yuanji cried out in joy as she jumped into Song Qingshu's arms, bringing with her a fragrant breeze. Hugging the girl's soft body, Song Qingshu gave a knowing smile. Little sister Yuanji, looking at the scene in front of her, Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but be envious. Although she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and countless men fell under her skirt, she had never found a man like this who could make her rush into his arms with such a girlish attitude. The two of them hugged each other tightly for a while. Li Yuanji suddenly realized that there was an audience watching them. She blushed and jumped out of his arms. In order to resolve her embarrassment, she pulled Song Qingshu's hand to the chessboard and said coquettishly, "Brother Song, come and help me. How should I make this move?" Looking at the densely packed black and white stones in front of him, Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. He was a transmigrator, and he was not a Go enthusiast in his previous life. How would he know how to play this game? If it was a game of Gamoku, he would still have the confidence to fight his opponent. "I don't know," Song Qingshu said awkwardly. "Gongzi is too modest." Chun Yuanyuan finally spoke. Her voice was still so soft and pleasant. It made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze, but at the same time, they couldn't help but feel a little restless. "That's right. I have lost 2 games in a row. Brother Song, you have to help me get back my face." Li Yuanji hugged Song Qingshu's arm and shook it. "These two women are sincerely watching me make a fool of myself." Song Qingshu was speechless. He really couldn't blame Chun Yuanyuan and Li Yuanji. After all, the 4 instruments, chess, calligraphy, and painting were the standard in this world. Anyone with a little bit of ability in their family would be trained from a young age. There was no reason that an elegant young master like Song Qingshu wouldn't know how to play. Moreover, in their hearts, Song Qingshu had always been a resourceful and immortal-like person. His skill in chess should not be inferior to a national-level player. "Let's play. Who's afraid of who?" Song Qingshu naturally didn't want to show his fear in front of the women, so he braced himself and played. Fortunately, he had been transmigrating to this world for a few years. Under the influence of what he saw and heard, he at least knew some of the rules of Go. At least he could play. Seeing her opponent's move, Chun Yuanyuan was very surprised. She couldn't understand why her opponent would play like this. Wouldn't that be a huge flaw? However, Chun Yuanyuan didn't dare to let down her guard. She only thought that her opponent's skill in chess was far better than hers, which was why he could make such a bold move. She was worried that her opponent was deliberately luring her in and that what awaited her was a trap. Therefore, she didn't dare to take the opportunity to attack and could only steadily defend. Song Qingshu's move was very fast, completely unlike Li Yuanji's previous hesitation. Seeing the young girl beside him, he couldn't help but applaud. Brother Song is awesome. In fact, she also didn't understand Song Qingshu's moves. However, in a young girl's heart, her lover was the best in everything. Since that was the case, he naturally had his reasons. It was just that she wasn't good enough. As the game progressed, Chun Yuanyuan's expression became more and more strange. An idea in her mind became clearer and clearer. Finally, she couldn't help but try to counterattack. Who knew that her opponent would collapse at the first touch? Li Yuanji, who was at the side, was instantly dumbfounded before she could finish her praise. Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help it anymore. She covered her mouth and laughed softly. So, Gongzi really is a lousy chess player. Song Qingshu's face was gloomy. I already said that I don't know how to play, but you guys still want me to play. In his heart, however, he was indignant. If it was like those system-driven novels in his previous life, where he brought an alpha dog with him when he transmigrated, it would be strange if he didn't torture her until she had climaxes. You scoundrel, you made me lose face. Thinking about how she had praised him to the heavens, Li Yuanji couldn't help but punch him in the chest with her pink fist. Not playing anymore. Not playing anymore. Song Qingshu guiltily messed up the chessboard. Seeing him act like a hoodlum on the street, Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but laugh. Song Qingshu hurriedly changed the topic. That's right. How is Madam's injury? Chun Yuanyuan smiled slightly. It's almost healed. The scene of him treating her wound suddenly appeared in her mind. Especially when the guards outside came to search the room, he violated her. Her already beautiful face became even more tender and beautiful. That's good. Song Qingshu suddenly asked with a strange expression, did she bully you during this period of time? Li Yuanji, who was at the side, immediately objected. Brother Song, in your heart, am I such a barbaric person? Chun Yuanyuan smiled gently. Sister Yuanji has always treated me very well. In fact, in the beginning, Li Yuanji was indeed full of hostility towards her, but she had grown up in a brothel and later mingled with so many powerful men. What she was best at was making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Although Li Yuanji was smart, she was still a young girl who didn't know much about the world. She casually used a few tricks to close the relationship between the two of them. Humph, Li Yuanji, who was at the side, heard her words and couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu proudly. Song Qingshu lovingly rubbed her hair and then said to Chun Yuanyuan, Madam, do you mind if I take your pulse? Chun Yuanyuan rolled her eyes at him and thought, you've already done that to me, and now you even have to ask me to take your pulse. Of course not. After saying that, she reached out her hand in front of him. Looking at the pure white wrist in front of her, Li Yuanji couldn't help but reach out and touch it. Sister, your skin is so white and smooth, I really don't know how you take care of it. Chun Yuanyuan blushed and subconsciously pulled down her sleeve to cover the skin on her forearm. Song Qingshu coughed twice and hurriedly got rid of all distracting thoughts to take her pulse. He found that her pulse was steady and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Madam's injury is almost healed. As long as you rest and recuperate, you will soon recover. This is all thanks to young master's treatment. Chun Yuanyuan said with a smile. Huh? Song Qingshu subconsciously glanced at her lower abdomen. Chun Yuanyuan was stunned. Only then did she realize that her words just now were ambiguous, and her pretty face instantly turned red. Ahem. Song Qingshu recovered quickly and hurriedly resolved the embarrassment. Since Madam's injury is almost healed, I should send Madam back. Actually, I think this cold palace is a good place to cultivate. During this time, my heart is calmer than ever before, Chun Yuanyuan said softly. Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't understand what she meant by her answer. Could it be that she had developed feelings for living here and didn't want to go back? I plan to take Sister UNG out of the palace. It's time for her to see her father. How can I rest assured if you live alone in this cold palace? Song Qingshu said, "What's more, your daughter has been very worried about you during this time." Hearing him mention Aku, Qin Yuanyuan swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Indeed, she had been out for too long, and it was time to go back. Can I really leave the palace? Li Yuanji asked in surprise. Of course. Song Qingshu stroked her soft hair. You've suffered staying in the cold palace all this time. Previously, he had let Li Yuanji stay here because of her sensitive identity. Now that the general situation had been settled, she had become an insignificant person in the palace. In addition, now that everyone's attention was on Yu Fei's case, taking her away quietly at this time would not cause a ripple. The biggest problem now is how to send you back. Song Qingshu looked at Chun Yuanyuan and said in distress, I can't take you directly to Aku. That way, I won't be able to explain to the people in the palace. The three of them discussed for a while and finally came up with a plan. Let Chun Yuanyuan pretend to be imprisoned in the cold palace. Then let the nearby palace maids or imperial concubines in the cold palace accidentally discover her, so that the imperial guards would take the initiative to rescue her. The biggest problem is your statement after being rescued. The imperial guards will definitely ask about what happened during this time. Song Qingshu looked at Qin Yuanyuan worriedly. Don't worry. I've experienced many ups and downs in my life. I can handle such a small matter. Qin Yuanyuan smiled slightly, her tone graceful and calm. That's good. Song Qingshu also believed that she could make up a reasonable story. Then he looked at Li Yuanji next to him, his heart full of playfulness. Why don't you go be the imperial concubine who snitches? Maybe you can even restore your status as an imperial concubine. Bah! Li Yuanji spat with a red face. I don't want to be the imperial concubine of Zhao and Song. Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but tease. Then whose imperial concubine do you want to be? As she spoke, her eyes deliberately glanced at Song Qingshu. Although Li Yuanji was sometimes bold and unrestrained, she was a shy girl after all. How could she withstand such teasing? Sister, you're teasing me too. I'll ignore you guys. I'm going to walk around the cold palace and see who is suitable to be the informant. After saying that, she ran out as if she was escaping. It's rare to see this girl shy. Watching her figure disappear outside the door, Chun Yuanyuan pursed her lips and smiled. After all, she's still a little girl. Song Qingshu also couldn't help but laugh. Seeing him yawning as he spoke, Chun Yuanyuan said for some reason, Are you very tired? Do you want me to massage you? Chapter 1342. Song Qingshu was startled. He didn't have such thoughts, but since she took the initiative to suggest it, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Sure. Song Qingshu sat upright on the couch, leaving enough space behind him, and gestured for her to come behind him. Chun Yuanyuan regretted at the moment she opened her mouth, but seeing they didn't have any intention of modestly declining, she couldn't help but feel angry and amused at the same time. After hesitating for a while, she climbed over the chessboard and half knelt behind Song Qingshu to massage him. When Chun Yuanyuan's fingers touched his shoulder, Song Qingshu felt an electric current flow through his body and only felt that the countless pores on his body were very comfortable. This technique, even the technicians in the high-class clubs in my previous life can't compare. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly, but he quickly came to his senses. Chun Yuanyuan was the most popular actress in the world back then. Compared to the technicians in his previous life, she was many levels higher. It was only natural that her skills were better. So comfortable. Song Qingshu couldn't help but close his eyes, relax his body, and began to enjoy the service that even the emperor couldn't enjoy. Gongzi, if you're tired, you can lie down and take a good rest. Chun Yuanyuan's soft and pleasant voice usually easily made people restless, but now Song Qingshu couldn't have the slightest evil thoughts. His heart was only filled with the warmth and relaxation of a family. Okay. Song Qingshu was indeed a little tired after running around for Yu Fei's case. After getting his approval, Qin Yuanyuan smiled slightly and gently held Song Qingshu's head and neck and slowly laid him down. At this moment, Song Qingshu completely relaxed his muscles and let her do as she pleased. Suddenly, he felt a soft but elastic place under his head, and he couldn't help but be surprised. At this moment, Chen Yuanyuan's face was also slightly red. She put Song Qingshu down and originally wanted to find a pillow for him to rest on. But when she looked around, she realized that the nearest pillows were far beyond her reach. If she got up to grab one, it would inevitably alarm him and wake him up from his relaxed state. She hesitated for a while and finally supported Song Qingshu's head to rest on her lap. Feeling the other party's round and tight thighs, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel restless. Fortunately, Chen Yuanyuan's fingers gently rubbed his temples. The gentleness of her fingertips gradually dispelled the restlessness in his heart. Even if she doesn't have this stunning beauty, she should still be a very charming woman. Feeling Chen Yuanyuan's gentle hands and smelling the faint fragrance on her body, coupled with the fact that he was overtired these days, he soon fell into a deep sleep. Looking at the man in her arms who was a year younger than her, Chen Yuanyuan's expression was rather complicated. Previously, because he had tricked Aku into coming to Yin Jing City as a hostage, she did not have a good impression of him at all. But now that they met again, he was already a man whose name had shaken the world. A few days ago, he had shone brilliantly in the Imperial Palace, completely like a banished immortal. But when she thought of that time when the two of them were hiding under the bed, she felt incomparably embarrassed. Which side is the real you? Looking at the man's sculpture-like firm and handsome lines, Chen Yuanyuan's expression became complicated and difficult to understand. Brother Song, Sister Yuanyuan, Li Yuanji went out to wander around and finally found a suitable candidate. She ran back excitedly to report the good news, but who knew she would see such a shocking scene? Li Yuanji only thought that Song Qingshu had hooked up with Chen Yuanyuan in such a short time. She felt jealous and wronged, and her eyes instantly turned red. Just as she was about to lose her temper, Chen Yuanyuan hurriedly made a gesture to her to keep quiet. He is too tired. Let him have a good rest, Chen Yuanyuan whispered to her. Li Yuanji was startled. She walked over to take a look and noticed the tiredness between her lover's eyebrows. Only then did she know that she had misunderstood the two of them. The feeling of grievance disappeared, and what was left was only heartache and pity. Why don't you replace me? Chen Yuanyuan said unnaturally as she pretended to get up. Originally, she had a clear conscience and felt that the two of them were beautiful. However, the two of them were lovers after all. It felt weird to let her lover sleep on her lap in front of Li Yuanji. No need, in case you wake him up. Li Yuanji hurriedly stopped her. Seeing Li Yuanji looking at Song Qingshu with her hand on her cheek, her eyes full of tenderness, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but feel envious. This kind of pure, flawless, carefree love was something she had never had before. Song Qingshu woke up and subconsciously wanted to sit up. However, his head bumped into something soft, and he instantly heard a cry of surprise. Only then did Song Qingshu return to his senses. He found that Chen Yuanyuan was holding her chest and looking at him with a reproachful expression. How could he not understand what he had just bumped into? Sorry, Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. What happened? Li Yuanji had also fallen asleep while watching. Now, she opened her eyes in a daze. Nothing. Chen Yuanyuan took the initiative to smooth things over. At the same time, she discreetly shrunk back. It's been a long time since I've had such a good sleep. Song Qingshu stretched, feeling refreshed. Of course, Sister Yuanyuan's lap is more comfortable than a pillow. Li Yuanji pouted and said, This is a blessing that even the emperor can enjoy. Don't talk nonsense. Chen Yuanyuan glared at her. Seeing her rubbing her thigh from time to time, Song Qingshu had an apologetic expression. I slept for so long. Are you feeling uncomfortable? I'm fine. Chen Yuanyuan smiled slightly. My leg is just a little numb. Song Qingshu smiled apologetically. He walked to the window and noticed that night had fallen. He turned around and asked Li Yuanji, Sister Yuanji, how's the person you're looking for? Is there anything that I can't do? Don't worry, I've already found a target. Li Yuanji raised her chin proudly. That's good. Song Qingshu nodded. Now that it's dark, I'll go find Aku to communicate and unify the accounts. Be careful, Chen Yuan and Li Yuanji said in unison. After speaking, they looked at each other in shock. Don't worry. Even if it's a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, I will come and go as I please. Who in the world can keep me here? Song Qingshu smiled confidently, and his figure quickly disappeared into the night sky. He didn't know how many times he had entered the imperial palace. Song Qingshu was now familiar with the way. When he passed by the residences of some of the imperial concubines in the Hogong, he even thought without malice that if he suddenly had the idea one day and came to the imperial palace to sleep with one or two imperial concubines, no one would find out. It was a pity that he had the ability now, but he didn't have the mind. It was like many people in his previous life. When they were young, they wanted all kinds of toys and snacks, but they didn't have money. When they grew up and had money, they couldn't return to the desire for toys and snacks of the past. At this time, Aku had sent away the palace maids and was sitting alone by the window, looking at the bright moon in the sky. In her mind, the scene of Song Qingshu walking down step by step from the sky kept appearing. At that time, there seemed to be a bright moon behind him. But when she thought of her current identity and fate, she couldn't help but sigh faintly. Little girl, why are you sighing? Is it because the night is long and lonely and you can't sleep? A teasing male voice suddenly sounded in her ear. In the depths of the imperial palace, a man's voice suddenly appeared. In addition, Aku was originally unprepared. In her shock, she subconsciously dodged back. Unfortunately, she was sitting by the window. When she dodged, she instantly lost her center of gravity and fell down. Aku cried out in surprise. She was already prepared to fall to the ground. In her heart, she was even afraid that this fall would accidentally disfigure her face or something. The collision and pain that she imagined didn't come as expected. Instead, her whole body fell into a warm and strong embrace. But she didn't feel the slightest bit happy. What followed was endless fear. She instinctively struggled with all her might. Let me go. Am I that scary? A depressed male voice sounded in her ear. Why does it sound so familiar? Aku subconsciously looked up and saw a face that she hated to the bone, but also yearned for day and night. It's you. Aku cried out in surprise. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Otherwise, who else would it be? Aku's face turned red. She pushed him away. Let me go. Song Qingshu didn't intend to deliberately take advantage of her. Hearing this, he helped her up and spread out his hands. I just saw you fall just now. You came to find me at this time. Did you already finish what I asked you to do? Aku took a step back and said with a slightly guarded tone. Hearing this, Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Last time, you asked me to either kill that assassin or Huang Chong. But those two are peerless experts. How could they be killed so easily? One was him, and the other was Huang Chong, who was no weaker than him. How could he kill them? Then why did you come to find me? Aku bit her lip. Her heart began to beat faster. Song Qingshu shrugged. Although I didn't kill those two, I helped you save your mother. Is that okay? Is my mother still well? Aku grabbed Song Qingshu's arm. Her trembling eyelashes showed that she was not calm at all. She originally thought that with her mother's beauty and the fact that she had been struck by Huang Chong, who was like a half-immortal, she was most likely dead after being kidnapped. Now that she heard news of her mother, how could she not be excited? She was injured before, but I've already healed her, Song Qingshu replied. Where is she now? Aku asked nervously. I came here to tell you about this, Song Qingshu explained. I was planning to send her back, but you also know that the way she disappeared is quite sensitive. If I send her back directly, there will be a lot of trouble, so I plan to... He then explained his previous plan. My mother is at the Cold Palace now? Aku asked. Yes. Song Qingshu nodded. I came to inform you so that you can prepare. I'll go back and start the plan now. He was about to turn and leave when Aku grabbed his hand. Wait. Chapter 1343. Hearing Aku's words, Song Qingshu was completely dumbfounded. He had imagined Aku's reaction after hearing news of Chen Yuan, but he could not think of this situation. Go far away. Song Qing-shu confirmed again. After all, it was strange for a daughter to let a man take her mother far away. That's right. Noticing the other's strange expression, Ako realized that it would be difficult for others to misunderstand. She hurriedly explained, "The main thing is that it is too dangerous for my mother to stay in the palace. I don't know who that mysterious assassin is, but his martial arts are so strong that he can enter the palace as if there was no one there. Once my mother returns, he will come looking for her." Song Qingshu's expression became even more strange. He unconsciously rubbed his nose and said embarrassedly, "Don't worry, that assassin won't come." Why? Aka clearly did not believe his words. "Because I saved your mother from the hands of that person. He was injured by me, and he won't be able to recover for 10 years. Song Qingshu had originally wanted to say that he had killed the assassin, but he quickly thought that it was too inauspicious and changed his words. "Really?" Aku was skeptical, and her face suddenly blushed. "Then why didn't you take the opportunity to kill him? That way, you could receive my repayment." Seeing the young girl's bashful appearance, Song Qingshu was pleased and could only find an excuse to explain. "That person's martial arts were too high. I could only injure him, but not kill him." "Even your martial arts couldn't kill him?" Aku's face was full of shock. Ahem. Song Qingshu was worried that if she continued to ask, his lie would be exposed, and he quickly diverted her attention. "Now you should be relieved to let your mother return." But Aku still shook her head. "Actually, what I am most worried about is not the assassin, but Huang Chong." "Huang Chong?" Song Qingshu couldn't help but frown. Aku replied, "Huang Chong has always loathed my mother. He feels that my mother is an inauspicious woman who has already ruined the Ming dynasty. He does not want her to ruin the Song dynasty as well. He has already advised the emperor many times to expel my mother from the palace, but I begged the emperor to stop him. Who would have thought that he would take advantage of the assassination attempt to harm my mother?" Song Qingshu knew that she was telling the truth. Last time, he had seen it with his own eyes. Huang Chong had indeed wanted to take Chen Yuan's life. "If my mother continues to stay in the imperial palace, Huang Chong will definitely find an opportunity to harm her. His martial arts are so high. How can we protect ourselves?" Aka looked at him pleadingly. "You've harmed my mother by sending her back, so please take her away from the imperial palace." "Then where can I take her?" Song Qingshu frowned. "Shanghai Pass." After all, Wu Sangue was still Chen Yuan's husband in name. Song Qingshu secretly thought, if Aka really wanted him to take Chen Yuan to Shanghai Pass, he would refuse no matter what. After all, he did not have the time to travel thousands of li to Shanghai Pass. Not to Shanghai Pass. Aku's reaction was also very intense. Mother and daughter were connected. She knew her mother's thoughts. She most likely did not want to go back for the rest of her life. Then where to? Song Qingshu frowned. "I don't know." Aku shook her head. "Can you take me to see my mother?" "Okay." Song Qingshu did not hesitate. After all, Chen Yuan had always been thinking of her. Aku suddenly had an awkward expression. "But if I go out, there will be a large group of palace maids and eunuchs. Will I alert the enemy and ruin your plan?" Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I'm here." With that said, he grabbed her slender waist and directly jumped out of the window. Being suddenly hugged by a man, Aku's first reaction was that the other party wanted to do something to her. She was about to shout for help when she suddenly realized that the other party was secretly taking her to the cold palace in order not to alert the other people in the palace. After thinking it through, Aku's body was no longer stiff and gradually relaxed. The tall walls and trees that she usually heard whistled past her ears, but she did not have the time to enjoy this rare experience. Instead, she looked up at the man who was hugging her. Song Qingshu clearly also noticed her gaze. He lowered his head and smiled at her, then quickly turned his attention back to the front. After all, the palace was heavily guarded, and there was also the unfathomable Huang Chong. He had to be very careful. Although it was nighttime, Aku had been dazzled by his smile just now. Her heart pounded, but she quickly thought of her current status and the humiliation of being rejected by him in the past. Her beautiful face gradually paled. Song Qing-shu did not have the ability to read minds, so he naturally did not know that the girl in his arms had 1,000 knots in her heart. The two of them were like smoke, quietly returning to the cold palace. Aku. Chen Yuan was chatting with Li Yuanji when she saw the two people suddenly appear. She exclaimed in disbelief. Mother! Seeing her mother, Aku also woke up from her melancholy state. She jumped out of Song Qingshu's arms and excitedly threw herself into her mother's arms. When the mother and daughter last parted, they originally thought that they would be far apart. Who knew that they would have a chance to meet again? They were so excited that they could not help but hug each other and cry bitterly. Seeing the sincere affection between the mother and daughter, Li Yuanji's eyes also turned red. She choked and said, I also miss my mother. Don't you miss your father? Song Qingshu gently put his arm around her shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry. You have already repaid what your father owed me. I won't make trouble for him anymore. After we leave the palace, I will send you back to meet your parents. Thank you, Brother Song. Li Yuanji nodded as she wiped her tears. Mother, was the mysterious assassin who kidnapped you last time Song Qingshu? Aka suddenly looked up at Chen Yuan and asked. Song Qingshu almost choked to death on his saliva. She was clearly warm just now. How had she changed so quickly? He was thinking about how to explain her later. After all, he had been lying to her before. Who knew that after a moment of surprise, Chen Yuan directly replied, Silly child, why would you think that? It was clearly Prince Song who saved me. Song Qingshu stilled. He didn't expect that Chen Yuan would hide the truth for him. At the side, Li Yuanji looked at him and then at Chen Yuan with a smile that was not a smile. Aka quietly looked at his mother's eyes. Seeing that he couldn't see any flaws, he smiled. Nothing. I was just asking. Song Qingshu was worried that if she continued to ask, Chen Yuan would reveal some flaws. After all, there were some things that happened between the two of them that couldn't be explained to Aku. He hurriedly diverted her attention. Just now, Aku said not to send you back to the palace. He then recounted what they had just discussed. Chen Yuan smiled slightly. What does it matter? Huang Chong killing me will help me wash away the sins of my life. Aku panicked and was about to say something when Song Qingshu spoke first. The public's mouth can melt gold, and the accumulated damage can melt the bones. Foreign has heard too many rumors. Now, even she feels that she is a femme fatale. Chen Yuan smiled sadly. Is it not? Of course not. Song Qingshu said resolutely and decisively. Pushing a man's failure onto a woman is a kind of cowardice and evasion. This is the behavior that people look down upon the most. Foreign, the reason why you're called a femme fatale is because those people are trying to cover up their own cowardice and incompetence. Really? Chen Yuan's eyes lit up. In fact, it wasn't that no one had said similar words before, but the same words had a different effect when said by different people. In the past, the great scholar Wu Meizuan had also tried to persuade her like this. But Wu Meizuan was just a scholar, and it was inevitable that he would try to please her. Song Qingshu was different. His name was now known throughout the world, and he was a marquis. The evaluation of this kind of top person in the world was naturally better than that of an ordinary person. Of course it is true, Song Qingshu changed the topic. In fact, you don't have to worry about being called a femme fatale. In my hometown, the term femme fatale is used to praise women. Not to mention Li Yuanji, even Aku couldn't stand it anymore. He thought to himself that it was no wonder he had so many female friends in the world. His ability to please women was really amazing. But Chen Yuan didn't seem to feel the sappiness. She only said angrily, Gongzi must be joking. How can a woman be praised as a femme fatale? Song Qingshu replied, When the people in my hometown meet a beautiful woman, they will often use the word devastatingly beautiful to describe her. But if they meet a woman who is even more beautiful, other words will no longer be able to describe her, and they will praise her as a femme fatale. Is that so? Chen Yuan pursed her lips and smiled. Then if I have a chance, I will really go to Gongzi's hometown to take a look. From her tone, it was obvious that she didn't believe him. The two women beside her also looked suspicious. Song Qingshu immediately became anxious. I swear to the heavens, if I'm lying, lightning will immediately strike me. Although flags couldn't be randomly raised, he really didn't lie this time. In his previous life, there were different levels of beauty on the internet. Above, devastatingly beautiful was indeed the level of a femme fatale. Gongzi, please don't make such a vicious oath, Chun Yuanyuan hurriedly said. I believe you. Li Yuanji, who was standing to the side, curled her lips. Brother Song was really trying hard to please a woman. She really is an existence that can bring calamity to a country. Even the world-famous Golden Snake King lost his composure in front of her. At this time, an old voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. The people in the room turned to look. When they saw Huang Chang's signature black cloak, the women's expressions changed. Only Song Qingshu didn't panic. He smiled and said, as the saying goes, money can't buy a beauty smile, and I can't bear to see women sad. A mere oath is nothing. Huang Chang lightly said, you have a sharp tongue. No wonder so many women are attracted to you. Hearing his words, the three women beside him immediately blushed. Song Qingshu couldn't help but become gloomy. I say, old Huang, you didn't come here on purpose to make fun of me, did you? Huang Chang's body stiffened. It was obvious that he was caught unprepared by the words, old Huang. After a long time, he finally snorted. You kidnapped the imperial concubine, and now I've caught you red-handed. Why don't you seem worried at all? Chapter 1344. Hearing his words, Huang Chang fell into silence. After a while, he replied, that's right. With your level of cultivation, I can't keep you here. But now that you have to take care of them, the situation is different. Song Qingshu smiled. Old Huang, you are a famous senior in Wulin, an existence like an immortal. How can you learn from those despicable people? When the martial arts of Wulin reach a certain level, other than cultivation, one's state of mind and spirit will greatly affect one's fighting ability. The most obvious examples were people like Jinluan Fuwang and Taoist Baishan. Their martial arts were the best in the world of Jianghu, but they were willing to be the dogs and eagles of others. Their state of mind wasn't great, so their combat ability was greatly reduced. On the opposite side was Ouyang Feng. Even though he was a bad person in the traditional sense, he had his own principles. For example, he respected his status and had the bearing of a master. He wasn't unscrupulous like some people. In addition, he had an ambitious and ruthless temperament. Even though his cultivation was lower than Jinluan Fuwang and Daoist Baisheng, when it came to fighting, he was better than them. Xiao Feng was similar. Even though his cultivation was very strong, his fighting ability was far beyond his cultivation level. It was because of his heroic spirit that reached the clouds. Song Qingshu purposely said this to make Huang Chang feel apprehensive. At his level of cultivation, if he left a flaw in his heart, it would have a terrifying effect on his strength. Who knew that Huang Chang didn't care? The way of the world is heartless. Whether it's despicable or unscrupulous, it's just the shackles that people put on themselves. Do you think I care about the moral standards of the world? Song Qingshu remembered that Huang Chang practiced Taoist martial arts. Taoists have always adhered to the concept of heaven and earth are heartless and treat all living things as dogs. Huang Chang had also cultivated to this level. It would be strange if he cared about methods. This is going to be difficult. Song Qingshu frowned. He wasn't afraid of Huang Chang if he was alone, but he had 3 women with him. If Huang Chang decided to attack them, he wasn't sure he could protect everyone, and that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that unless they fought to the death, he did not have the confidence to keep Huang Chang here. Once Huang Chang revealed the news of this place to Zhao Go, the rare honeymoon period between the two sides would be interrupted, and a series of unpredictable chain reactions would occur. At this time, Huang Chang spoke again. His words surprised everyone. I know what you are worried about. You don't have to worry about it. I'm not here to be your enemy. Song Qingshu stared blankly. The two of them had fought every time they met, causing him to instinctively think that Huang Chang was here to cause trouble again. I won't do anything to them, and I won't tell anyone else what I saw today, but Huang Chang changed the topic. But you have to promise me something. What is it? Song Qingshu asked in a low voice. At the same time, he quickly calculated whether or not he could control the other. After all, Huang Chang's condition was definitely a difficult task. He didn't want to be tied down because of it. Actually, concubine Wu has already stated this condition, Huang Chang continued. Take Chun Yuan out of the palace. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the other's condition to be so simple. As if sensing their confusion, Huang Chang looked deeply at Chun Yuan and continued. This woman is unlucky. Staying in the palace will harm the great Song's fortune. Hearing his evaluation, Chun Yuan's charming face instantly paled. Her body swayed a few times. If Aka hadn't held her up, she might have fallen to the ground. Song Qingshu was speechless. I say, Old Huang, why didn't I see that you have the potential to be a fraud? Fortune is illusory and often used by ambitious people to deceive the common people. Why do you, a learned great-grandmaster, believe in this? He couldn't help but think of Newton in his previous life. He was the best in physics and a super genius in mathematics. In his later years, he devoted his energy to theology. Could it be that these geniuses all reached the same goal when they reached a certain level? I'm not listening to hearsay. I have my own evidence, Huang Chang said calmly. In the past year, I've been observing the stars at night. I found that ever since Chun Yuan came, the North Star, which represents the Emperor of the Great Song, has gradually dimmed. I don't want the Great Song to follow in the footsteps of the Ming dynasty. Song Qingshu frowned. You blame the rise and fall of a country on a woman. The people of your era are really ridiculous. Hearing Song Qingshu argue for her, Chun Yuan's eyes showed a trace of gratitude. Even Aku's gaze softened when she looked at him. Huang Chang said calmly, I didn't come here to argue with you. If it wasn't for the fact that you saved the princess of this dynasty and vindicated Yu Fei, I wouldn't have let her live. I would have taken her life. In fact, there was another purpose that he didn't say. This way, he could sell a favor to Song Qingshu and also have something to use against him. Why not? Song Qingshu frowned slightly. He was about to say something when Chun Yuan stepped forward and pulled his arm. Young master, you don't have to speak for me. I didn't want to stay in this imperial palace. It's going to take this opportunity to leave. Okay, I'll take you out later. Song Qingshu nodded. After all, it was dangerous for her to stay in the imperial palace. In addition, Aku had the same intention. There was really no need to fight to keep her here. Huang Chang looked thoughtfully at Song Qingshu. Let me give you a friendly advice. After you take her out, it's best to send her as far away as possible. This woman is not good. If you keep her by your side, it will affect your luck. It's not easy for you to have such achievements at such a young age. Don't let beauty ruin your future. Song Qingshu sneered. You don't have to worry about me. I don't believe in such nonsense. Not only will I not send her away, but I will also keep her by my side. Time will prove everything. Hearing his words, Li Yuanji's expression changed slightly. She was worried for her lover. She wanted to say something, but when she thought of Chun Yuan, whom she had been getting along well with, she didn't say anything in the end. Chun Yuan's face, which had previously turned pale from Huang Chang's evaluation, now had a faint blush. She thought to herself, what does he mean by keeping me by his side? Aka knew that her mother had been under a lot of pressure these past few years. Her father had only been greedy for her mother's beauty and had not cared about her mother's feelings. Thus, her mother could only silently endure the slander and ridicule of the world. Now that she saw Song Qingshu's understanding and protection, her eyes lit up and a voice sounded in her heart. Could it be that he was doing all of this for me? Chun Yuan was a generation younger than Song Qingshu, so Aka didn't think too much about it. In the end, he is still a young man. Lust is like a knife above his head. Huang Chang didn't say anything else. His figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. Huang Chang's words caused the people in the room to have strange expressions. Fortunately, Aka broke the awkwardness. Brother Song, what do you plan on sending my mother? On one hand, She hated this man who had changed her life, but on the other hand, she had an indescribable feeling for him. However, seeing that he had stood up for her mother, her words were naturally much more polite and gentle. Song Qing-shu bitterly laughed. You have to ask yourselves. You mother and daughter should discuss this and see where you plan on going. Chen Yuanyuan faintly sighed. After we leave the imperial palace, young master can just send me to a random nunnery. These past few years, I have been living under the lamp of an old Buddha. Unfortunately, my fate in the mortal world has not been fulfilled yet, so I have not made up my mind. This is a good opportunity for me to shed my hair and cultivate. It can also be considered as fulfilling my wish. No, Song Qing-shu and Aku said in unison. Aku glanced at Song Qing-shu. Then, she hugged Chen Yuanyuan's arm and pressed her face against it. Mother, you are so cruel to become a nun. Do you not want me anymore? Why would I not want you? Chen Yuanyuan lovingly caressed her daughter's hair. But a nun is a nun. When that time comes, you will be brainwashed by those nuns. Who knows? You might not even want to see me anymore. Akka seemed to have seen the future, and the more she spoke, the sadder she became. Song Qing-shu coughed and said, Madam is a peerless beauty. If you go to cultivate, I'm afraid that it won't take long for the men nearby to flock to you. In addition, Madam's reputation is too great. I'm afraid that it will attract some extreme people. By then, Madam's safety will not be guaranteed. In fact, there were many things that were not convenient for him to say. One must know that in the ancient times, there were many nunneries and female Taoist temples that would turn into brothels due to various reasons. Take Yu Xuanji, for example. After he became a nun, he had an endless stream of patrons. Be in terms of reputation or beauty, Chen Yuanyuan far surpassed Yu Xuanji. Song Qing-shu could already imagine the scene when she entered the nunnery. This was not Shanhai Pass, and Chen Yuanyuan did not have the ability to protect herself. Song Qing-shu did not have the energy to protect her all the time. Hence, he felt that it was too dangerous to cultivate in the nunnery. Yes, what Brother Song said is exactly what I wanted to say. Akka hurriedly added, If I don't go to the nunnery, where else can I go? Chen Yuanyuan sighed, and she seemed to be in a daze. Song Qing-shu suggested, Why don't you go back to the Chen family of Haining? Didn't Madam return to the Chen family? Madam's uncle, the current patriarch of the Chen family, is the third minister in the imperial court. He is in charge of the finances of the world. He has a high position, and people call him the Minister Ji. He will definitely be able to protect you. The third minister was a system that existed in the early Northern Song dynasty. It was abolished in the later period. But because of the chaotic butterfly effect in this world, the Southern Song dynasty still retained this system. Chen Yuanyuan shook her head and said, Mister, you may not know this, but the Chen family prides themselves on being a family of scholars. In their eyes, I am a woman who has brought shame to the family. Who would be willing to accept me? The reason why they accepted my identity was because my uncle, Chen Ziqiang, is a core member of Han Xingzhou's group. Han Xingzhou wanted to ally with Wu Sangue, so he made use of him. Furthermore, I escaped from the imperial palace. As long as I step into the Chen family, they will send me back to the imperial palace on the same day. Chapter 1345. Chen Yuanyuan's face reddened. She couldn't help but say, Aku, what nonsense are you talking about? She knew that even if a normal woman and a young man lived together, there would be all kinds of rumors, especially when her identity was so sensitive. I'm not speaking nonsense. Didn't Brother Song and Huang Chong say the same thing? Aku was still a young girl who had not seen much of the world. She did not understand the risks behind this. Prince Song was just responding to Huang Chang's words. Chen Yuanyuan almost stomped her feet. She thought, my silly daughter, in the future, men will eat her up and she will be grateful. It's not that I'm just being perfunctory. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. How about this, if Madam doesn't mind, you can stay at my place for a period of time. We'll talk about it when you think of a place to go. Chen Yuanyuan's charming face was flushed, and her big watery eyes were filled with incomparable awkwardness. This I'm afraid it's not very good. Song Qing-shu waved his hand. Foreign, do not worry. I'm upright. I'm not afraid of any rumors. Chen Yuan was speechless. Of course you are a man. Of course you are not afraid. It is always us women who get hurt. But she quickly realized that her reputation was already bad enough. As the saying goes, debt does not weigh on one's body. Also, he was helping out of kindness. Then I will trouble master. Chen Yuan bowed and said softly. Ako also looked gratefully at Song Qing-shu. Brother Song, thank you. Being stared at by two calamitous beauties, even Song Qing-shu, with a strong will, was dazed for a moment. He was worried that he would lose his composure if he continued to stare. He said in a hurry, Huang Chong came just now. He might have alerted others. We should leave the palace as soon as possible. In such a hurry? Chen Yuan instinctively looked at her daughter. Her reluctance to part with her was clear in her words. Even though Aku was also reluctant to part with her for safety reasons, she also urged, Mother, leave the palace first. I will find opportunities to come see you often. Song Qing-shu criticized in his heart, thinking, you are an imperial concubine who is favored. Even if you and Zhaogo are only husband and wife in name, but other people do not know, how would they dare to let you leave the palace as you please? Chen Yuan was obviously thinking the same thing as him. It's easier said than done for you to leave the palace. Ako pursed her lips and smiled. She tugged on Song Qing-shu's sleeve and said, Brother Song's kung fu is so strong that he can come and go as he pleases in the palace. If I miss you, I could just ask him to take me out of the palace quietly. Song Qing-shu's face was filled with black lines. He thought to himself, if you often walk by the river, how can you not wet your shoes? It was too risky to come to the imperial palace to bring his most beloved concubine out of the imperial palace. At the very least, Huang Chong would not sit by and do nothing. Nonsense. Prince Song has a lot of things to deal with every day. He doesn't have time to deal with you. Chen Yuan pinched her daughter's face. It shouldn't be a problem to bring him out of the palace once in a while. Song Qing-shu interrupted. No matter what, he had to give them some reassurance. Otherwise, it wouldn't be right to just take him away like this. Before the mother and daughter left, they whispered to each other for a while. Song Qing-shu saw that it was almost time, so he said to the two of them, I'll send Aka back to the palace first. When I come back, I'll take you out. Chen Yuan and Li Yuanji had no objections. After all, they couldn't leave Aku alone in the cold palace with no one around. First, they were afraid of danger. Second, even if they returned safely, they wouldn't be able to explain to the guards in the palace. Song Qing-shu held Aku's slender waist and returned along the way. Soon, they returned to her bedroom. After settling her down, he was worried that something might happen to the two women left in the cold palace, so he hurriedly turned around and left. Wait! Aku suddenly grabbed him and said with a face full of resentment, Do I annoy you that much? Song Qing-shu was stunned. No, why do you ask that? Then why did you just put me down and leave? Aku pouted and muttered in a low voice. I feel like a burden. Song Qing-shu laughed. No man in the world would dislike such a beautiful girl as a burden. Aku's eyes lit up. You also think I'm beautiful? Song Qing-shu looked at her gently. Of course, white jade inlaid with pearls can't compare to your beauty, and the first dew of a rose can't compare to your beauty. Aku had been praised for her beauty many times since she was a child, but she had never been as happy as she was now. Brother Song, thank you for saving my mother. Aku's face became more and more gentle. The resentment from being tricked to Yin Jing by him seemed to have mostly disappeared. It's a piece of cake. Looking at her charming face under the candlelight, Song Qing-shu's heart moved. Although Aku and Chen Yuan looked somewhat similar, their temperaments were completely different. Chen Yuan was graceful, mature, and charming, while Aku was full of youth and beauty. One was an extremely beautiful young woman, while the other was an extremely beautiful young girl. It was really a saying that plums, orchids, bamboos, and chrysanthemums each had their own advantages. Seeing that Song Qing-shu had been staring at her in a daze, Aku turned her face away shyly. A faint blush appeared on the girl's crystal-clear face, and the bashfulness on her face made Song Qing-shu stunned. He subconsciously teased. Previously, you said that if I complete your request, you'll promise me one thing. I wonder if it's still true now? Aka's heart skipped a beat. Of course it counts. Then can I make a request now? Song Qingshu looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Aka's heart beat even faster. The young girl's modesty caused her to reflexively refuse. But you clearly didn't complete my request. Song Qingshu immediately became gloomy. Although I didn't kill the assassin or Huang Chong, I saved your mother. In addition, I will have to take care of her and protect her for a period of time. No matter how you look at it, I can still fulfill your previous request. Then, after my mother is settled, then you have completed your request, Aka said with a red face. Song Qingshu's eyes lit up. Then, when the time comes, I can make any request I want from you. Aka somewhat regretted making him stay. She didn't even need to look in the mirror to know that she was blushing. She thought to herself, how do you expect me to respond to such a question? Seeing that the young girl had her head lowered and was silent, Song Qingshu suddenly felt that this was particularly interesting. If you don't say anything, then I'll take it as a silent agreement? Aka opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Song Qingshu laughed. All right, I won't tease you anymore. I'll leave first. Take care of yourself in the palace. If there's anything urgent, you can contact me according to the method I taught you just now. Well, you have to be careful yourself. Aka felt her vision blur, and Song Qingshu was no longer in the room. For a moment, she couldn't help but stand on the spot, feeling lost. When Song Qingshu returned to the cold palace, he found that both Chun Yuanyuan and Li Yuanji had a strange expression on their faces. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "What's wrong with you guys?" Chun Yuanyuan smiled, but didn't say anything. It was Li Yuanji who said in a lively manner, "Just now, Sister Yuanyuan and I made a bet on how long it would take for you to come back. Sister Yuanyuan said that with your lightness skill, you could come back in the time it takes to drink 3 cups of tea. However, I know your character. You definitely want to stay there and have some fun with Aku, so I concluded that you wouldn't be able to come back in less than an hour." Seeing Chun Yuanyuan's faint smile, Song Qingshu was extremely embarrassed. After all, he was teasing her daughter. He was a little angry and wanted to pull Li Yuanji over. "You stinky girl, are you deliberately making it difficult for me?" Unexpectedly, Li Yuanji was already prepared. Like an agile rabbit, she instantly hid behind Chun Yuanyuan. "Sister Yuanyuan, someone wants to kill me to silence me. Don't hide. No one can save you today," Song Qingshu deliberately said fiercely. Seeing Song Qingshu pouncing over, Li Yuanji cried out in alarm. She pushed Chun Yuanyuan forward and took the opportunity to hide further behind. Chun Yuanyuan originally thought that Li Yuanji was only using her as a shield. She didn't expect that the other party would turn her into a moving shield. In fact, even if she had expected it, she couldn't do anything about it. After all, Li Yuanji knew martial arts, and she was just a delicate and weak woman. Hearing Chun Yuanyuan's cry of alarm, Song Qingshu subconsciously reached out to catch her, holding her steady so that she wouldn't fall. In the end, he couldn't help but feel extremely embarrassed. It should be known that with his character, if he wanted to take advantage of someone, he would do it openly. He didn't care about such petty tricks. Therefore, the situation in front of him was what he hated the most. It was clearly not his intention, but it made his glorious and imposing image fall into the Mariana Trench. Chun Yuanyuan was still smiling a moment ago, but now her smile froze on her face. Her gaze fell on the other party's hand on her chest. She opened her mouth, but found that she couldn't say anything. "Hey, what's wrong with the two of you?" Li Yuanji hid behind them. Who knew that after waiting for a long time, Song Qingshu still hadn't caught up. When she looked back, she saw that the two of them were quietly hugging each other. No, nothing. After all, Chun Yuanyuan was someone who had experienced great storms. After a while of buffering, she had already come back to her senses. She quietly took a step back. "Just now, you almost pushed me down. Fortunately, Prince Song supported me." Li Yuanji stuck out her tongue. "I'm sorry, Sister Yuanyuan. You don't have to be so polite with me." Chun Yuanyuan dotingly stroked her hair. Seeing that Chun Yuanyuan acted as if nothing had happened, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. There was indeed a difference between a mature woman and a young and inexperienced girl. It was much easier to interact with a mature woman. Seeing that the two of them were chatting endlessly, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, "It's getting late. Let's leave the palace first." Li Yuanji giggled and said, "Okay, I'll give you a chance to hug each of them." As she spoke, she opened her arms, indicating for Song Qing-shu to come between the two of them and hug them. On the side, Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. She thought that she had cultivated alone for so many years, and a man had never even touched the corner of her clothes. Who knew that during this time, she would be hugged and touched by Song Qing-shu? Really? But when she thought about how she had been in contact with Song Qing-shu before, a mere hug didn't count as much. Chun Yuanyuan calmed her mood, and her face returned to its usual graceful and gentle smile. "Thank you, young master." Song Qing-shu nodded. Hugging the two of them, he turned into a sharp arrow and quickly flew out of the palace. Chapter 1346. After returning to the Fu, Song Qing-shu didn't enter from the front door. Like a thief, he snuck into the room. Because he was worried about Chun Yuanyuan's safety, he specially arranged for her to stay in the room next door. Then, he ordered the servant girls to prepare toiletries and other things and put them in front of her room door. From beginning to end, he didn't meet Chun Yuanyuan face to face. The main reason he did this was because Chun Yuanyuan's identity was too sensitive. She was a femme fatale in the hearts of the world, and he had secretly brought her out of the palace. The servant girls and manservants in this Fu were all prepared by the court for him. There were definitely spies from various powers. If someone knew that Chun Yuanyuan was here, it would be very troublesome. Song Qing-shu had already made plans. He decided to go out tomorrow and find some trustworthy servant girls and manservants to replace the servants in the Fu. However, it was already late, and it wasn't convenient for him to stay in Chun Yuanyuan's room for long. So, he had her rest early. AI. Looking at Song Qing-shu's back, Chun Yuanyuan wanted to say something but stopped. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "I'm just next door. If there's any trouble, I'll immediately come over to protect you. So, madam, you don't need to worry about danger. Go to bed early." "Thank you for your trouble, young master." Chun Yuanyuan's face was slightly red. In fact, what she wanted to say was that because she saw Song Qing-shu today, she hadn't eaten anything yet. Right now, her stomach was already rumbling with hunger. However, women were more concerned about their own image. She always felt that asking a man for food was somewhat indecent. After hesitating for a moment, she still didn't say it. She thought that since Li Yuanji hadn't eaten, when she was hungry and acted like a spoiled child in front of Song Qing-shu, the two of them would naturally remember that she was also hungry next door. Meanwhile, when Song Qing-shu returned to his room, Li Yuanji happily jumped into his arms. The two of them were affectionate for a while. Then, Song Qing-shu asked, "Yuanji Mimi, when do you plan to leave for Yangzhou?" Li Yuanji's small mouth curled. "What? You want to drive me away so quickly? Are you afraid that I'll ruin your and Yuanyuan Jijia's good time?" Song Qing-shu was speechless for a while. "That's not what I meant. I just want to know in advance so that I can arrange the following time more rationally. Also, don't make that kind of joke so casually. If others heard it, you don't know how awkward it would be." Feeling sorry for me so soon, Li Yuanji giggled. "I'm just joking with you. I plan to leave early tomorrow morning." "So early?" Song Qing-shu asked in surprise. Li Yuanji gradually stopped smiling. "I've been out for so long. If I don't go back to visit my parents, it will be unfilial. I couldn't do anything in the palace before, but now that I'm out, I naturally have to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, my conscience will be uneasy. Moreover, my father, after being defeated by you, the difference between before and after is too great. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for him to recover. I also need to console him. In that case, I can't stop you." Song Qing-shu nodded. "But I haven't finished my business yet, so I can't see you off personally. The Golden Snake Camp has a branch here, but there are no masters. I'm worried about your safety on the way." Li Yuanji raised her chin and said confidently, "Don't worry, Brother Song. All these years, I've traveled all over the country. Am I not alive and kicking? Seeing her contented look, Song Qingshu lovingly pinched her nose. Today is different from the past. In the past, you were alone and didn't have any enemies. But now you are my woman. What if my enemies can't deal with me and find you to deal with? I have to guard against that. As the daughter of a feudal lord, Li Yuanji naturally understood that he wasn't speaking without thinking. Thinking of the enemy holding her hostage to threaten Song Qingshu, she couldn't help but slightly change her expression. But when she heard her lover say that she was his woman, her heart was quickly replaced by a sweet feeling. Song Qingshu continued, I'll teach you a set of light body techniques so that you will have the ability to protect yourself when you encounter danger. Wow, Li Yuanji's eyes brightened. Back then, she was also a girl obsessed with martial arts. In order to get her master Lu Feiqing to teach her martial arts, she spent a lot of effort. Do you know the position of the Book of Changes? Song Qingshu asked. Among the lightness skills he knew, the wave-like subtle steps was most suitable for women to practice. At the same time, it also had a nature-defying dodging effect, which was very useful when facing masters. I roughly remember. Li Yuanji was the daughter of the admiral's mansion, and her master Lu Feiqing was a disciple of the Wudong sect. Whether it was military education or Taoist tradition, they all involved some things about the Book of Changes. In addition, she was smart, so those things were imprinted in her mind from a very young age. Then it'll be twice the result with half the effort. Song Qingshu was overjoyed. I'll teach you the formula while demonstrating. Watch carefully. Wave-like subtle steps, silk socks produce dust. Returning sister. Innocent. Song Qingshu demonstrated in front of her several times. Li Yuanji remembered most of it, but when she actually started to walk, she would inexplicably fall after a few steps. It was obvious that she failed. What's going on? Song Qingshu practiced martial arts as if he had a plug-in. He had never practiced martial arts step by step, so he naturally didn't understand what kind of problem Li Yuanji had encountered. At first, he thought that she was not qualified enough, so he could only patiently explain it a few more times. Unfortunately, Li Yuanji still encountered the same problem. I don't know. I clearly remember those steps, but after a few steps, I felt annoyed and nauseous. I couldn't take the next step no matter how hard I tried. Li Yuanji said with a pout. Obviously, she felt a little embarrassed after running into a wall several times. Song Qingshu reached out and felt her pulse. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind, and he found the reason. I understand. Wave-like subtle steps is a very advanced martial art. It requires the practitioner to have a deep internal strength. Every step is closely related to internal strength. It's definitely not just walking. If someone without the foundation of internal strength forcefully walks wave-like subtle steps, it will cause the danger of self-destructing meridians. Li Yuanji's pretty face was slightly pale. Fortunately, she didn't try to be brave just now. Otherwise, if she was paralyzed, it would be worse than death. I originally planned to teach you another internal strength. In that case, let's learn internal strength first and improve your internal strength. After all, in this martial arts world, internal strength was the foundation of everything. Only when the internal strength was high, other abilities could be improved by leaps and bounds. What internal strength? Li Yuanji asked curiously. She used to study under Lu Feiqing and learn some internal strength mental cultivation methods of the Wudong sect. However, because Lu Feiqing's position in the Wudong sect was not high, she naturally couldn't learn the top pure yang limitless technique, Wudong Nan Yang technique, and so on. Song Qingshu took out a booklet on which various human silhouettes were drawn. There were some red lines inside the human body. This book is called Megiddo Country Wants to Stop Movement and Achieve Shinzu Sutra. It was passed down from India's Megiddo country. It is a magical technique. When he met Tanji, he cleverly took the Sanskrit version of the muscle bone strengthening scripture from the Shaolin Temple. Unexpectedly, Li Yuanji shook her head. What devil, earth, broken legs? The name is so ugly. It is also some Indian martial art. I don't want to learn it. Brother Song, can you teach me a more powerful martial art from the Central Plains? This internal strength is also called Shinzu Sutra. Although the name is a little ugly, it is really very powerful. It is the most profound internal strength in India. Its position in India is similar to the muscle bone strengthening scripture and Ninine Sutra of the Central Plains. Although Song Ching Shu also had the muscle bone strengthening scripture and Ninine Sutra, the muscle bone strengthening scripture was in Sanskrit and he had never had time to translate it. The Ninine Sutra was too profound and obscure. Even top masters like Wu Ju and Guijing could not be considered to have truly mastered it after decades of practice. Li Yuanji's martial arts skills were even worse. It would take too long for her to practice. If she learned the method that Zhou used, her foundation would be unstable and it would be easy for her to go berserk. As for the joyful true energy and the God-illuminating scripture, they were not suitable for women to practice. The everlasting youth art also had a high threshold, and the absorbing star's great skill had too many drawbacks. After thinking about it, the most suitable one for Li Yuanji was the Shinzu Sutra. Song Ching Shu continued to explain, this internal strength is very suitable for people who have no foundation to practice it. It can progress very quickly, and the internal strength obtained is amazing. He was indeed not lying. In the original work, Yu Tanji's aptitude was average. He learned this martial art halfway through, and the internal strength he obtained was unexpectedly able to suppress the internal strength of the martial art genius Xiaofeng. Although it was not without the help of the ice silkworm, the Shinzu Sutra was the foundation. All right, since Brother Song said so, then there must be no problem. Hurry up and tell me how to practice it. Li Yuanji looked at him with a face full of excitement. Practice according to the postures of these little people. The red lines represent the route of the genuine qi. Song Ching Shu handed her the booklet with the Shinzu Sutra, which was copied from the Sanskrit version of the muscle bone strengthening scripture. Li Yuanji couldn't wait to take the booklet and practiced according to the postures drawn on it. After a while, she couldn't help but have a strange expression. Brother Song, is the creator of this martial art a pervert? Song Ching Shu was confused. Of course not. He is an eminent monk. Why do you ask this? Li Yuanji's face turned red, and she said timidly, this practice, this posture is a bit too shameful. Song Ching Shu had been guiding her on the route of the genuine qi. After hearing her words, he noticed her current posture and almost had a nosebleed. It turned out that at this time, Li Yuanji was standing on one leg with her body slightly leaning forward. The curve of her small and exquisite chest was particularly obvious, and the other foot was raised high behind her head. At this moment, her posture vividly displayed the gentleness and beauty of a young girl, showing off her voluptuous figure. Of course, it wouldn't be considered much in his previous world, but in this feudal and conservative era, it was indeed somewhat shocking. This is the unique secret of yoga in India. Although these postures are a bit strange, they can not only strengthen the sea of consciousness of the practitioner, but also greatly expand the practitioner's flexibility. If a woman practices it, she can also maintain her youth. Song Ching Shu swallowed his saliva and explained in a hoarse voice. Really? Then I have to practice seriously. Li Yuanji's beautiful eyes lit up. She completely ignored the other effects, but was interested in the last sentence to maintain her youth. After all, there was no woman who didn't love beauty. Looking at Li Yuanji's posture that made people's noses bleed, Song Ching Shu only felt that the fire in his lower abdomen was burning more and more fiercely. Finally, when she posed with both hands on the ground, one foot on the ground, and the other up in a split posture, Song Ching Shu couldn't bear it anymore and directly pounced on her. Brother Song, I'm still practicing. At this time, because of the practice, Li Yuanji's skin was oozing a thin layer of sweat, and her face was also very attractive. You continue practicing, I'll play. Song Ching Shu only felt that his body was getting more and more swollen and couldn't help but lean behind the girl. Chapter 1347. Sensing Song Ching Shu's actions, Li Yuanji could vaguely guess what he was going to do. Her pretty face became redder than rouge, and she said coquettishly, "Brother Song, how am I supposed to practice if you do this?" Song Qing replied seriously, "Your foundation of Nigong is too weak. I will use my true qi to guide you and help you build a foundation so that you can achieve twice the results with half the effort." Li Yuanji also admired her lover's ability to speak nonsense with a straight face. She bit her lips and tried to stand up. "I really don't know what to do with you. Let me serve you first before practicing." Who knew that Song Qing would immediately stop her? "No need. You continue practicing so that I can guide the circulation of true qi in your meridians." Li Yuanji was immediately embarrassed. "Just this position?" "Of course." Song Qing wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and directly pounced on her. Meanwhile, Chen Yuanyuan's stomach was unbearably hungry, and she finally couldn't help but go out. She was afraid that her whereabouts would be exposed, but she didn't dare to call the maidservants, so she could only go next door to find Song Qing and Song Qing. Just when she was hesitating on what to say later, Chen Yuanyuan suddenly heard a low moan that sounded like a sob, and it made her heart beat wildly. She was no longer an inexperienced girl, so she naturally understood what this sound was. She blushed and spat, and was about to turn around to go back, but for some reason, she didn't know why she stopped in her tracks. "Should I go take a look?" Once this idea appeared, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't hold it in anymore. She struggled in her heart for a long time, and when she came to her senses, she found that she was already standing by the window. Chen Yuanyuan's originally charming face could be said to be green and beautiful at this moment. She pursed her lips and kept hinting to herself, "Just take a look and then leave immediately. I won't stay any longer." Through the small gap in the window, the situation in the room was imprinted in her eyes. When she saw the scene inside, she almost cried out in surprise and hurriedly covered her mouth with her hands. "These two really don't know shame," Chen Yuanyuan secretly spat. Although the human nature of voyeurism made her want to look a little longer, many years of education made her regain her rationality, and she blushed as she trotted away. After returning to the room, Chen Yuanyuan closed the door and leaned her back against the door. Her full chest was heaving up and down. It was obvious that she was in a very bad mood. She didn't know if it was because she was too hungry or something else, but the jogging seemed to have used up all the strength in her body. At this moment, she found that her legs were unbelievably weak. Fortunately, there was a door behind her, so she didn't fall to the ground. After standing still for a while, Chen Yuanyuan seemed to have regained her strength and walked to the bed with difficulty. At this time, she naturally knew that there was no need to think about finding food, so she took off her clothes and curled up under the covers, planning to sleep early and eat when she woke up tomorrow morning. However, it was not so easy to fall asleep early. As soon as she lay down, Chen Yuanyuan's mind kept replaying the scene she had just seen. This was really hard for her. She was already hungry, and she kept thinking about those scenes. She tried for a long time, but she still couldn't fall asleep. The two of them are really crazy. Chen Yuanyuan thought about the posture the two of them were in just now, and spat. Song Qing usually looks like a gentleman, but I didn't expect him to have no tender feelings for the fairer sex. Sister Yuanji is also the same. She actually followed his temper and used that posture to humiliate herself. When she thought about Li Yuanji's twisted posture, Chen Yuanyuan's heart beat even faster. Doesn't she feel uncomfortable being twisted like that? Won't her waist break like that? A sudden curiosity rose in her heart, and Chen Yuanyuan began to imitate Li Yuanji's posture. Although she had never practiced yoga, nor did she have any foundation in martial arts, she was naturally seductive and her body was soft. Although it was a little difficult at first, she still managed to correctly put on the posture she had just seen. "What am I doing?" Chen Yuanyuan suddenly came to her senses and immediately felt ashamed. She hurriedly tried to give up that posture. Unfortunately, she made a mistake. That posture was too strange, and she didn't follow the correct steps to stretch her body. As a result, when she unlocked her body, her joints accidentally got stuck. She tried several times, but still couldn't recover from the previous posture. Chen Yuan was very shocked, and she hurriedly tried to restore her posture to normal. However, the more anxious she was, the tighter her whole body was locked. In the end, it even formed a dead knot. Unless she broke her own joints, she wouldn't be able to recover. Chen Yuan was so anxious that she was about to cry. Not to mention whether staying in such an uncomfortable posture for a night would cause her body to suffer permanent, irreversible damage. Even if there were no sequelae, when she thought about how Song Qing-shu and Li Yuanji would see this embarrassing scene of her the next day, she wouldn't be able to live the rest of her life. What she was afraid of really happened. Suddenly, Song Qing-shu's voice came from outside the door. "Madam, are you asleep?" "I'm already asleep," Chen Yuan blurted out with a guilty conscience. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she was stunned. It was really embarrassing. Huh? Song Qing-shu clearly didn't expect to get such a ridiculous answer. In fact, the reason why he came over was because Li Yuanji urged him to come and find out what Chen Yuan was thinking. After all, what happened just now was too embarrassing. In addition, she completely forgot to lower her voice, afraid that the next door would hear, so she found a reason to ask Song Qing-shu to come over. In fact, when Chen Yuan was hiding outside the window, Song Qing-shu had already discovered it. However, he couldn't tell Li Yuanji the truth, or else the girl would be embarrassed to death. He was afraid that she wouldn't be willing to cooperate with him in the future, so he pretended to come over and ask. With Song Qing-shu's current cultivation, he naturally noticed that Chen Yuan wasn't asleep, so he continued to knock on the door and said, "It's a bit rude to come over so late at night, madam. However, after Sister Yuanji reminded me, I remembered that you too haven't eaten, so I brought some food over." Of course, there had to be a good reason to come over, and bringing food was obviously a good one. No need. Although Chen Yuan was so hungry that her eyes were a little blurry, she didn't dare to let him in her current state. However, what made her collapse was that she heard a squeak, and the door actually opened. I didn't do it on purpose. I just randomly knocked on the door. I didn't expect that your door wouldn't be locked. Song Qing-shu also hurriedly explained. After all, as a man, he came to find a ridiculously beautiful woman in the middle of the night, and even opened her door. No matter how you looked at it, it seemed like he was up to no good. However, when he saw Chen Yuan's current posture of twisting into a ball on the bed, which vividly highlighted her soft and beautiful figure, as well as her curvy front and back curves, he almost had a nosebleed. Chen Yuan also exclaimed. Obviously, she didn't expect such a situation. Only then did she realize that when she came back, she was in a bad mood, so she subconsciously closed the door and forgot to lock it. I'm really sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. At this moment, Song Qing-shu was acting like a pure virgin, and he looked extremely uneasy. At the same time, he was also cursing in his heart. Could it be that because he had been cheating on her too much previously, he had become a scapegoat again and again? Close the door. Chen Yuan was so anxious that she was about to cry. Oh, okay. Song Qing-shu was at a loss as he casually closed the door. Chen Yuan almost fainted when she saw this. She glared at him angrily. Who let you in? Only then did Song Qing-shu realize that she wanted him to close the door and leave. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm really rude, madam. I'll leave now. With that said, he didn't hesitate and turned to leave. Chen Yuan had just heaved a sigh of relief when she saw him suddenly turn around again. Her heart was in her throat again. These are the pastries that little sister Yuanji asked me to bring over. Madam must be very hungry, so I'll leave them here first. Madam can slowly eat them later. Seeing a calamitous beauty in such an exaggerated position on the bed, Song Qing-shu said this with a rare blush on his face. He planned to leave in a hurry. Wait a moment. Looking at the delicious food on the table, Chen Yuan suddenly called out to him. Her expression was uncertain, and it was obvious that she was having a fierce mental struggle. Does madam have any other instructions? Song Qing-shu turned around and said with his head lowered. Even though the scene in front of him was so bloodthirsty, he knew that Chen Yuan must be extremely embarrassed right now, so he didn't dare to show any strange expression. Chen Yuan bit her lips. You come over for a moment. When Song Qing-shu heard this, he couldn't help but raise his head to look at her in shock. His heartbeat also sped up. Looking at the peerless beauty on the bed, he couldn't help but feel conflicted. Could it be that she couldn't bear the loneliness these years? And in addition to seeing me and that girl being intimate, she couldn't bear the drought and needed to find me to nourish her? When the time came, should I accept it or decline it first before accepting it? Come here. Seeing Song Qing-shu standing in place and staring at her in a daze, Chen Yuanyuan was shy and angry. I'm coming. Song Qing-shu jogged over, hesitating on how to start. Should he first play with his asterisk? But for a mature woman like her, it might be good to go straight to the point. Young master, please help me. My joint is stuck. There's no way to return in normal. Chen Yuanyuan's voice became softer and softer. Even though she also felt embarrassed, she wasn't an insensible little girl. After the initial panic and shame, she quickly recovered. After all, she didn't want such a shameful scene to be seen. Rather than continuing to be in such an embarrassing position, she might as well ask him for help. Otherwise, she would have to face this problem tomorrow morning. At that time, even Li Yuanji might see it. Thinking that she was imitating Li Yuanji's actions just now. If she saw it tomorrow, the two of them might not be able to look at each other for the rest of their lives. Hearing her words, Song Qing-shu understood that he had misunderstood her meaning. But thinking about how Chen Yuanyuan had embarrassed herself by imitating those yoga movements, he couldn't help but want to laugh. You're not allowed to laugh. Chen Yuanyuan noticed his smile and couldn't help but angrily shout, wishing that there was a hole in the ground that she could immediately crawl into. Okay, I won't laugh. Song Qing-shu put away his smile, but the slightly raised corner of his mouth showed how happy he was in his heart. Relax your entire body. Don't resist me. I'll ease your joints bit by bit. Seeing that she was showing signs of acting up again, Song Qing-shu also understood that he couldn't tease her anymore. Chapter 1348. As soon as Song Qing-shu's hand touched Chen Yuanyuan's body, he immediately felt her body stiffen. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Madam, didn't I tell you to relax? You're so nervous that you're even more tightly locked. Chen Yuanyuan secretly rolled her eyes at him. How could a woman not be nervous when her body was touched by a man other than her husband? This was just an instinctive reaction. However, she also understood that this was not the time to be nervous. She took a deep breath and tried to relax her body. Then she whispered, "Come on." Hearing this, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. It was as if this peerless beauty was sending him an ambiguous invitation. He hurriedly restrained his mind and focused on unlocking her. Madam, bear with it first. It might be a little painful at first. Song Qing-shu had already seen her current situation. The main reason was that she was too anxious to recover from this position. As a result, she was stuck. Now, the only way was to restore her previous position. Only then would he be able to free her hands and feet. Chen Yuanyuan's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Her cheeks were already burning hot. His words sounded like a husband comforting a young girl on her wedding night. Suddenly, she cried out in pain and woke up from her thoughts. It turned out that Song Qing-shu was pressing her body down. Pain, Chen Yuanyuan's body was very sensitive. Her resistance to pain was almost zero. The pain caused tears to appear in her eyes. If there were other men around, they would have pounced on Song Qing-shu and fought him to the death. Madam, it's almost done. A trace of cold sweat appeared on Song Qing-shu's forehead. After all, it was indeed difficult to unlock her position and control the strength to not hurt her. The amazing feeling from his hand inevitably made Song Qing-shu restless. He hurriedly tried to divert his attention. Fortunately, Madam's body is very flexible. That's why I was able to smoothly undo it. Chen Yuanyuan blushed but did not answer. Instead, she thought, I'd rather my body wasn't so flexible. That way, I wouldn't have been able to make that position and wouldn't have been so embarrassing to you. Under Song Qing-shu's meticulous movements, Chen Yuanyuan felt her body lighten and finally return to normal. As soon as she regained her freedom, Chun Yuan stretched her limbs with excitement. She'd been locked up for too long earlier, and it caused her to slightly forget how her limbs felt. Ouch! Amidst her excitement, Chun Yuan felt sore and numb all over her body. She couldn't help but frown. Madame's posture, just now, was overly stretched, causing some of the corresponding meridians to be slightly damaged. Song Qingshu explained, "Why don't I help you massage them and use my Jinqi to nourish those damaged meridians?" Chun Yuan looked at him with a strange expression. Was he doing this unintentionally, or was he trying to take advantage of her? When Song Qingshu saw that she didn't respond for a long time, he finally realized that this world wasn't like his previous world where it was common for men to massage women and apply sunscreen. How could a woman in this world allow a man to casually touch her body? "I was rash." Song Qingshu smiled apologetically. "Madam, you don't have to worry. Even without Jinqi nourishment, you'll recover after a few days of rest." Chun Yuan originally thought that since he'd touched the most private parts of her body, a simple massage was nothing. She was about to open her mouth and agree, but who knew that after hearing his words, she didn't know what to say. She couldn't, as a woman, take the initiative to ask him to touch her, right? "Madam, rest early. I'll take my leave first." Song Qingshu smiled and stood up to walk out. "Wait!" Chun Yuan suddenly called out to him. Song Qingshu stopped his hand from closing the door and looked at her in confusion. "Madam, do you have any other instructions?" Chun Yuan said with a red face, "What happened tonight? Gongzi, can you keep it a secret for me?" Song Qingshu was stunned, and then an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. "Madam, don't worry. This is a secret between the two of us." Chun Yuan thought about the way he blinked his eyes when he left, and her whole body was so embarrassed that she directly burrowed into the quilt and covered her head with the quilt, as if she'd returned to the age of shy girl. "It's so embarrassing, so embarrassing." After Song Qingshu returned to the room, Li Yuanji heard the movement and opened her eyes in a daze. "Brother Song, why were you gone for so long?" Song Qingshu walked to the bedside, smiled slightly, and said, "There was a small accident, so I was delayed for a while." "What accident?" Li Yuanji twisted her body, pillowed her head on his lap, and looked up at him. "It's nothing, go to sleep." Since he'd promised her, Song Qingshu naturally couldn't tell her what happened next door. "Oh," Li Yuanji didn't ask further, and suddenly remembered something. "By the way, what about the thing I asked you to find out?" "What thing?" "After the incident next door, just now." Song Qingshu didn't react. "It's..." Li Yuanji's face blushed. "I just wanted to see if Sister Yuan you heard anything." She really didn't know why she was so bold and indulgent just now. After calming down, her first reaction was that she was afraid that Chun Yuan would hear something, and then she really wouldn't be able to live in the future. Song Qingshu secretly laughed, thinking that these two women were really interesting. They both had secrets that they couldn't let others know, for fear that the other party would know. In comparison, it seemed that Chun Yuan's was more shameful. "What are you laughing at? Answer me quickly." Li Yuanji suddenly became anxious. "Don't worry, she didn't hear anything." Song Qingshu explained. "Really? Then why did you stay there for so long?" Li Yuanji looked at him suspiciously. "I chatted with her for a while." Song Qingshu was worried that she would continue to get to the bottom of the matter, so he hurriedly changed the topic. "Do you remember the 2 martial arts I taught you before?" "I remember." Li Yuanji's skin blushed, thinking that you used such a shameful position to guide the true energy in my body to circulate, that kind of unforgettable feeling. I'm afraid I won't be able to forget it for the rest of my life. "Do you know why I taught you these 2 martial arts?" Song Qingshu asked. "To satisfy your lust." This was the first thought that appeared in Li Yuanji's mind. Secretly sticking out her tongue, she threw this thought out of her mind, and then answered, "In order for me to have more power to protect myself in the future." "This is only one of the reasons." Song Qingshu nodded. "This time when you go to Yangzhou, you will see your father, and at the same time, you will also see, cough cough, you will see some sisters. You also know that many people are still brooding over the matter of your father joining hands with Machi Fan to harm me. I am worried that they will vent their anger on you. So after you go to Yangzhou, teach these two martial arts to those sisters. This way, you will get closer to them, and second, they will be too embarrassed to bully you. Li Yuanji looked at this man in a daze. When she thought about how he had considered all these details for her, a layer of mist appeared in her eyes, and she was so moved that she hugged him. Song Gij, why are you so good to me? Silly girl, if I don't treat you well, who should I treat well to? Song Qingshu lightly patted her back and gently said. Li Yuanji's pair of eyes sparkled, and she directly pushed him down and sweetly said next to his ear, Song Gij, in the future, whatever position you want me to, I will do it to you. Song Qingshu had already been aroused by Chun Yuanyuan's words earlier, and now hearing her, it was as if he was struck by lightning, and the two of them rolled back into the blanket. The next day, after sending off Li Yuanji, Song Qingshu and Chun Yuanyuan walked side by side on the small path outside the city. Of course, in order to avoid trouble, Chun Yuanyuan's face was covered with a layer of veil, covering her devastatingly beautiful appearance. Gongzi, did you not sleep well last night? Seeing Song Qingshu yawning, Chun Yuanyuan held back a few times and finally opened her mouth to ask. The time I slept was too short. Song Qingshu said with a bitter smile. Chun Yuanyuan was confused, thinking that although she delayed him for a while last night, it was not too late, right? However, she had always been a cold person and quickly realized that after the other went back, he most likely spent the whole night with Li Yuanji. Hey, these two people are really shameless. Chun Yuanyuan secretly spat and somewhat wanted to advise him not to use his youth to play with his body. But thinking that it would be too strange for her to say such words, she hesitated again and again, and in the end, did not say it. After continuing to walk by his side for a while, Chun Yuanyuan could not help but ask curiously, Where are we going? Song Qingshu smiled slightly. The beggar clan. Since Shi Shangyun had already persuaded her father to do things according to the agreement, he should also keep his promise and let Shi Shangyun go. In fact, he did not want to expose his relationship with the beggar clan to others, but Chun Yuanyuan's identity was sensitive, and if he left her in the residence, he would not feel at ease, so he simply brought her with him. The beggar clan? Although Chun Yuanyuan was not a person of Jianghu, she had more or less heard of the beggar clan, and knew that it was one of the top clans in the world. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the beggar clan. Chun Yuliang had already received the news, and came out to welcome them. Yuliang greets Gongzi. When he saw Chun Yuanyuan beside Song Qingshu, he could not help but be amazed. Although Chun Yuanyuan's face was covered, her graceful figure and the temperament she exuded as she stood there quietly was enough to prove that she was a peerless beauty. In particular, her beautiful eyes, which were like the starry sky, made Chun Yuliang's heart beat faster, even though he had never been attracted to women. The one with the surname Song is really lucky with women, always having such a peerless beauty by his side. Chun Yuliang cursed in his heart. He had also seen Zhou Zhiruo in the past, and her ethereal appearance had left a deep impression on him. If it was not for the fact that he was obsessed with power and needed to use Zhou Zhiruo to threaten Song Qingshu at that time, he might have done something improper to Zhou Zhiruo. How was the one with the surname Wei? Song Qingshu asked as they walked towards the headquarters. The cold poison in her body is almost gone, but she is in a daze every day, like a cripple. Chun Yuliang replied respectfully. Song Qingshu nodded. It would be strange if a proud genius like Wei Ruolin did not become dispirited after suffering such a huge blow. As he pondered, he suddenly noticed Chun Yuliang's hesitant expression and could not help but ask, Hey, why do you look so distressed? Did you encounter something difficult? Chapter 1349. Hearing this news, Song Qingshu was shocked and couldn't help thinking of that wrong night. The soul-stirring aftertaste suddenly made his heart beat violently. Alas, I was too impulsive at that time. Although it seemed a little shameless to say, so after taking advantage of him, Song Qingshu did regret it. Although the first time was a beautiful misunderstanding, he was too much of a jerk later on. Although Song Qingshu had the factor of being possessed by the devil at that time, wasn't it also the most genuine impulse in his heart? Since practicing Mankasvara dhyana, Song Qing-shu had encountered the situation of being possessed by the devil many times, especially that time in the Forbidden City, which almost made him lose himself and fall into the abyss of eternal damnation. Although it was thrilling every time he was possessed by the devil, he inevitably had doubts. After all, compared with the dangers encountered by the legendary predecessors of Tantra Buddhism, it was really not worth mentioning. Song Qing-shu had been thinking about this problem for the past few years. Now that he had learned more and more martial arts, his skills were getting higher and higher, and his understanding of the essence of martial arts was getting deeper and deeper. In addition, he was in a high position, so his angle of view was different from ordinary people. Gradually, he really did figure out some clues. The reason why those who practiced the joyous dhyana were prone to qigong deviation was mainly due to the fact that they had dual cultivated with the same woman. After the first yin and yang union, the subsequent cultivation with that woman was almost useless. The cultivator had no choice but to find a new woman. But those who practiced Mankasvara dhyana were usually Buddhists who were congenitally deficient in pleasing women. It was difficult for ordinary women to fall in love with Buddhists. If it was an ordinary woman, it would be fine. After all, those who practiced Mankasvara dhyana were all brilliant and powerful in martial arts. Although it was difficult to please a woman, it was not impossible. But Mankasvara dhyana had very high requirements for the furnace. It must be a woman with extremely rich pure yin qi in her body. But such women were all beautiful and blessed by the heavens. How could they fall in love with some monks? In desperation, those cultivators could only use force to force the women to submit, or directly use the attribute of joyful true qi to make the women's bodies yield. After tasting the sweetness, how could those cultivators still painstakingly pursue the women with sincerity? Just like taking drugs, once you took the first sip, you couldn't stop. Those cultivators had unknowingly embarked on the evil path, and those proud women were all famous figures in Jianghu or the imperial court. Similar incidents happening one after another would inevitably attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Faced with the pursuit of the righteous path, the practitioners had no choice but to increase their strength as much as possible to protect themselves. But to increase their strength, they would inevitably need more talented women, which in turn would attract even more fierce pursuit. In this way, they would fall into a vicious cycle. Because of living on the edge of life and death for a long time, people's character would become more and more extreme, more and more unscrupulous. In the end, they would forget their original intentions and be swallowed by their inner demons. But Song Qing-shu was an exception. As if it was fate, all kinds of talented women appeared around him. They had gone through thick and thin together and inevitably fell in love with each other. Because of his two lives, Song Qing-shu was much more ambitious and knowledgeable than other practitioners. In addition, he would not be burdened by his identity as a lama, so the women around him were often voluntary. He did not need to force them at all, so he was lucky enough to jump out of the vicious cycle that the predecessors of Tantra Buddhism faced. But even so, Song Qing-shu was still affected by the inner demons several times, which showed how terrible the inner demons would become once they fell into the vicious cycle. In fact, the emperor is the best candidate to practice Mankasvara dhyana. A thought suddenly came to Song Qing-shu's mind. After all, the emperor had 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines, so he did not have to face the vicious cycle. But Song Qing-shu quickly denied this speculation. Although there were many concubines in the palace, it did not mean that there were many women who met the requirements. In particular, there were all kinds of fights in the harem for affection and jealousy. Even if there was a beautiful woman, it was very easy for her to be worn down to the point where all that was left was schemes and viciousness. He had been the emperor in the palace of the Qing kingdom for a period of time. At that time, in the entire palace, only Empress Xiaodong and a few others reached the standard of talented women. Even the emperor doesn't have this good fortune. How can I be qualified to be surrounded by talented women? Song Qing-shu also secretly clicked his tongue. After thinking about it, It might be because these women were outstanding characters in the Golden Book, so they carried the luck of this world, which led to such a high success rate. Although he had avoided the biggest risk, the inner demons were still a hidden danger. All these years, Song Qing-shu had been thinking of ways to deal with them in his spare time, but unfortunately, he did not come up with any good ideas. It was not that he did not want to stop practicing Mankasvara Dhyana. After all, he would die if he did not practice it when he was seriously injured. Now that his body had recovered, he still could not stop. However, he could not stop. Firstly, the joyous true qi was too powerful, and he could not bear to give it up. Secondly, the joyous true qi had the ability to devour. Previously, the divine, illuminating true qi and 9-in true qi in his body had been fused with the joyous true qi. Although he had experimented with the method of creating virtual meridians and recreating the divine, illuminating true qi and 9-in true qi, these virtual meridians were built on the basis of the joyous true qi. Now that he had so many people to protect, if he did not have the strength, he would experience the meaning of a miserable world. Not long ago, he practiced the equally magical Taishan Sutra. The internal force of the Taishan Sutra operated in a different way, unlike the meridians and acupoints that were known to the public. Therefore, it was not merged with the joyous genuine qi, which made it possible for him to stop practicing the joyous dhyana. However, as a man, the benefits of the joyous dhyana were too tempting. Until now, Song Qing-shu still had not made up his mind. Young master, Chen Yuliang wondered why he became like this when he heard of Huang Rong. Could it be that he also had ulterior motives toward Huang Rong? Chen Yuliang's voice roused Song Qing-shu from his contemplation. Seeing the two people beside him looking at him strangely, he couldn't help blushing and hastily said, "If they come, then so be it. Why are you so flustered?" Chen Yuliang smiled bitterly and said, "Young master, I'm afraid you don't know the whole story." At that time, the beggar clan was divided into 3 parts. Although Shi Huolong became the new leader of the Jiangnan beggar clan, Huang Rong's prestige was too high. Many people still regarded her as the leader. When she comes to Linen this time, it's inevitable that she will make a trip here. But Shi Huolong is dead, and the successor, Shi Hongshi, is... once she makes things difficult for me, my position in the gang will be in danger. Song Qing-shu frowned and said, "Did you really kill Shi Hongshi?" Although he was now in a superior position, he was still not used to the means of disregarding human life. Of course not, that was too risky. Once it was exposed, I would be doomed eternally. Chen Yuliang hurriedly explained, "I only used means to force her to leave here and then let my trusted subordinates secretly monitor her to prevent her from returning." Song Qing-shu's face looked better and said, "You don't have to worry too much about Huang Rong. When the time comes, you can't do anything. I will come forward to deal with her." Then I'm relieved. Chen Yuliang was overjoyed, but in his heart, he was thinking that this guy really did have some relationship with Huang Rong. Song Qing-shu secretly sighed in his heart and said, "Alas, I don't know after so long. Does Ronger hate me or miss me?" But even with his narcissism, he understood that it was definitely the former. While the 3 of them were chatting, the beggar clan's disciples had already brought Wei Rulin over. After seeing Song Qing-shu, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by deep fear. Song Qing-shu was very satisfied with the look in his eyes. It seemed that his previous psychological attack had worked. "Wei Rulin, how is your injury now? Who wants you to be hypocritical?" Wei Rulin spat. At this time, he had already discovered that in addition to Song Qing-shu and Chen Yuliang, there was also an extremely beautiful woman with a graceful figure in the room. If it was a normal day, he might have admired her, but unfortunately, his heart was dead now, and he withdrew his gaze after a glance. Song Qing-shu coldly snorted and casually waved his hand. It was as if there was an invisible whip in the air that lashed at his body. With a crisp paw sound, Wei Rulin wailed and rolled a few times before stopping. "This is a lesson for you. You are not qualified to stand in front of me," Song Qingshu said lightly. Wei Rulin looked at him with hatred, but when she met his eyes, she could not help but feel a tremor in her soul, and hurriedly lowered her head. Chen Yuliang, who was watching from the side, was secretly shocked. This cultivation that could form a whip with a gentle wave of his hand was really amazing. After he had practiced the muscle bone strengthening scripture, he had boasted that he was the top master in Jianghu, but now it seemed that in the entire Shaolin Temple, except for the one in the Sutras Pavilion, perhaps no one was his opponent. Chen Yuan's focus was not on martial arts, but on the oppressive feeling that Song Qingshu's body exuded a moment ago, which made her somewhat pale. Before this, the impression that Song Qingshu gave her was that of a top expert whose name shook the world, a distinguished and elegant playboy. Although somewhat shameless, he could also be considered gentle. But now she remembered that the other was the god of death who had destroyed 100,000 Qing troops, the devil who made countless children in Yinjing not dare to cry at night. Song Qingshu opened his mouth again. Wei Rulin, you should be glad that you have a good fiancée and a good sister. For their sake, I will let you go this time. You. Hearing his words, a deep sense of humiliation welled up in Wei Rulin's heart. After all, he had always thought that it was his fiancée who had sold her body to save his life, and now even his sister had not escaped from his evil clutches. Wait! Wei Rulin suddenly raised his head. You? How did you know that I have a sister? That was his biggest secret. After all, it was related to the family's mission of 100 years. How could he not panic? You have no secrets in front of me. Song Qingshu calmly said, I even know your family's mission. I've already made an agreement with your sister. I'll help you realize your family's wish, but in return, you have to become my subordinates. Nonsense, I don't believe it, Wei Rulin exclaimed. After 100 years of hiding from place to place, the people in their family had long developed a cautious character, so he subconsciously thought that the other party was bluffing. Moreover, their wish was to overthrow the Zhao and Song dynasties and restore the Great Zhou dynasty. At that time, he would be the emperor, so how could his sister agree to become someone else's subordinates? Song Qingshu sneered, stretched out his hand, and the water in the teapot beside him automatically flew into his palm. Then he casually raised his hand, and a few thin pieces of ice instantly shot into Wei Rulin's body. Life and death talisman! Wei Rulin screamed in horror. Then his body felt as if thousands of insects were biting his bones, and he could not help but struggle painfully on the ground, try to use the friction of the ground to relieve the itch on his body. Chen Yuan's hair stood on end as she watched. Today, she had witnessed Song Qingshu's methods at close range, and she suddenly doubted whether it was a wise choice for her to stay by the side of this devil-like man. Chapter 1350. Chen Yuliang shuddered at the sight of Wei Rulin's miserable condition. The beggar gang had always been well informed. As a senior member of the beggar gang, he had naturally heard of the life and death spell. He knew that it was a kind of torture used by Tianshan Tonglao of the Spirit Vulture Palace in the Western region. But it was one thing to hear about it, and another to see it with his own eyes. He found that he had underestimated the horror of this hidden weapon. He had seen Wei Rulin's martial arts before, and he knew that she was an extremely proud person. But after being hit by this hidden weapon, she was rolling on the ground like a dog. If he used this thing to control me. Thinking of the biggest function of a life and death spell, Chen Yuliang couldn't help but shudder. Now that he thought about it, it was better to take the 3-corpse brain elixir or the leopard embryo tenon-changing pill. After all, he didn't have to endure such pain before the poison took effect. At this time, a disciple of the beggar gang came to knock on the door. He was still immersed in fear and hadn't fully woken up. He subconsciously replied, "What's Grand Master Huang?" Grand Master Huang Rong? The disciple was also somewhat puzzled. He thought who else could be Grand Master Huang in the beggar gang? So soon? Chen Yuliang came to his senses and slightly changed his expression. After all, he had just received the news that they had arrived in Linen, but they came so soon. Several people came. In addition to Grand Master Huang, Master Guo also came with them. The disciple replied with a sense of reverence in his tone. After all, Guojing and Huang Rong were extremely prestigious in the hearts of the beggar gang disciples. Young master, you see. Chen Yuliang looked at Song Qingshu with an embarrassed expression. Song Qingshu waved his hand and said, "You go to receive them first. I'll come over after dealing with the things here." That's good. Chen Yuliang could roughly guess the purpose of Huang Rong's trip. He was worried about how to deal with it. Now that he had the support of Song Qingshu, he naturally had more confidence. Looking at Chen Yuliang's departing figure, Song Qingshu appeared to be in a daze. He sighed inwardly. It's been a few months since we last met. I wonder what it's like now. However, Wei Rulin's screams soon interrupted his thoughts. He tried to take out the life and death talisman's antidote. Although this pill could not completely eradicate the life and death talisman, it could alleviate the symptoms of the life and death talisman for a year. The island masters and cave masters of the 36 islands and 72 caves worked hard every year just to obtain this antidote. Song Qingshu looked at him coldly, not intending to stop him. Wei Rulin hurriedly stuffed the antidote into his mouth and revealed a grateful smile. However, his smile quickly froze on his face because the pain and itch on his body did not show any signs of relief. How is this possible? Wei Rulin poured a few more pills in her mouth. Unfortunately, it was still useless. I advise you not to waste your efforts. Song Qingshu said lightly, "Your life and death talisman has been modified by me. Your antidote is naturally useless." It turned out that the nature of the life and death talisman was to use the yin and yang qi of a person. Since Song Qingshu was an expert in this field, he had mixed his joy true qi into the life and death talisman. It could be said that it was the life and death talisman zero version. Wei Rulin's original version of the life and death talisman could not cure him. Although the life and death talisman zero version was more powerful, it had an obvious shortcoming. It did not have the antidote like the first version. Every time, he had to personally suppress the life and death talisman, so it was destined to be used only on a few key people. Wei Rulin hurriedly struggled to crawl to Song Qingshu's leg. She pulled his trouser leg and said, "Please, I beg you, help me remove the life and death talisman." Song Qingshu chuckled. "Are you willing to recognize me as your master now?" "Yes, yes." Wei Rulin's tears flowed down. Her usually proud head was now nodding like garlic. Only then did Song Qingshu quickly seal a few acupoints in her body. Then, Wei Rulin felt that the feeling of being unable to live or die gradually faded away. Before she had time to feel happy, Song Qingshu said, "I only temporarily suppressed the life and death talisman in your body. If I continue to suppress it in half a year, it will relapse again. So you should know what to do during this period." Although Wei Rulin also knew the way to remove the life and death talisman, Song Qingshu was not worried. After all, to remove the life and death talisman, one must know how much yin force and how much yang force were used in each acupoint. Only the person who used the life and death talisman knew this. Therefore, even if Wei Rulin knew the way to remove it, she could not remove it. "Got it," Wei Rulin said bitterly. "Actually, you don't have to be so discouraged," Song Qingshu replied. "I think you know how slim it is to realize your family's wish. But now that you have my help, your wish will be realized sooner or later. You can go back and ask your sister about the specific details. As the saying goes, show kindness and threaten together." He knew that being oppressive would not make their relationship last, so he had to give Wei Rulin some benefits. Really, Wei Rulin was stunned. He had been taught to oppose the Song dynasty and the Zhou dynasty since he was young. He thought that if he could really complete his family's mission, it would be worth it for him to suffer. "Are you suspecting me?" Song Qingshu's voice instantly turned cold. "I don't dare." Wei Rulin was shocked and hurriedly bowed his head. He now had a deep fear of the person in front of him. "Very well, you can go back first. You have been missing for so long. Do you know how to tell the people around you?" Song Qingshu looked at him coldly. "I won't say anything." Wei Rulin swallowed his saliva and bid farewell to him again. Then, he left as if he had been pardoned. Chun Yuan hesitated for a moment as she watched him leave in a sorry state. Finally, she could not help but say, "Prince Song, don't you think it's a little too much for you to bully him like that?" Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "That's because you don't know how he had harmed me. If I had fallen into his hands, I'm afraid that my fate would have been even more miserable." "I see." Chun Yuan patted her chest. "You look so scary just now. Then, do you like my usual appearance or my earlier appearance?" Song Qingshu could not help but tease her. "Of course it's my usual appearance." As soon as she opened her mouth, Chun Yuan immediately realized the trap in his words. She could not help but pout coquettishly. "You're so annoying." However, she could not help but compare in her heart. His usual warm and sunny appearance also had a trace of roguish aura that made people feel safer. However, his demonic appearance just now seemed to have another kind of fatal attraction. Of course, Song Qingshu did not know that his unintentional behavior was in line with the style of a domineering CEO described in some female novels in his previous life. It caused a few strange ripples in the heart of a woman like Chun Yuan, who had been cleansed of all prettiness. Worried that Chun Yuliang would not be able to hold on any longer, Song Qingshu said to Chun Yuan, "Would Madam be willing to come with me to meet that Chief Huang? Although I have been cultivating in seclusion all these years, I have heard about Madame Gua. I have always admired her for being able to become famous all over the world as a woman and gain the admiration of all the men in the world." Although Chun Yuan was smiling on the surface, she was feeling sorry for herself. In fact, wasn't she also famous all over the world? It was just that she was remembered only for her beauty, while Huang Rong was remembered for her chivalrous reputation. Hearing the words Madame Ge, Song Qingshu, who was walking in front, sighed inwardly. "Chun Yuliang, don't talk about other things anymore. Where is Chief Shi?" In a meeting hall, Huang Rong was questioning him with her phoenix-like eyes. Chun Yuliang's expression changed slightly. He had no choice but to explain. "Miss Shi believes that she is not capable enough to lead the gang, so she abdicated her position. Now, I am temporarily acting as the gang leader." "Abdicate her position?" Huang Rong sneered. "The abolition of the gang leader is a big deal. How could she abdicate her position without a sound?" "I heard that this matter is only known by Elder Chen's small circle of people. Isn't it a little too strange?" She did not address Chun Yuliang as gang leader, but still called him by his previous position. Obviously, she did not admit to this matter. Seeing her pressing closer, Chun Yuliang's heart was filled with hatred. It was not that he did not want to use force, but when he saw Guo Jing sitting in the distance, he could only give up the idea. Guo Jing's martial arts were matchless, and his 18 dragon-subduing palms was famous all over the world. Although he had learned the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, he was afraid that he might not be Guo Jing's match. If it was before, he might have tried. But not long ago, when he teamed up with his master, Chung Kuan, they suffered a crushing defeat to Song Qingshu. It was a great blow to his self-confidence. He knew that there was always someone better than him in the universe. His confidence had been taken away, so naturally, he did not dare to make a move. Moreover, Guo Jing and Huang Rong's prestige in the Beggar Clan was too high, so he could not use the Beggar Clan's power to deal with them. However, Chun Yuliang had never been the kind of person who relied on force. He was better at strategy and tricks. Therefore, he calmly replied, "May I ask Chief Huang, when did the position of the Beggar Clan leader become a hereditary position?" "Nonsense, of course not." Huang Rong had more or less guessed his plan, but she still had to answer this question. "Each of our Beggar Clan leaders is a very capable person who can convince the masses. However, the successor must be appointed by the previous leader." Chun Yuliang laughed mischievously. "Chief Huang," he said, "by saying this, it seems that you are deliberately reversing the order. The previous leader should first appoint a successor, and then that successor should do some great things for the Beggar Clan. First, he can prove his ability, and second, he can convince the masses. But Miss Shi doesn't have the ability, so she can't convince the masses. Just because she is the daughter of the previous leader, she became the new leader. This matter does not conform to the beggar clan's rules. Huang Rong looked at him deeply. She had always heard that this person was a deep schemer and eloquent speaker. Now that she had seen him, he really did live up to his reputation. She knew that Shi Hongshi's succession to the position of gang leader was somewhat unjustifiable, so she decisively did not want to tangle with him over this matter. Instead, she immediately changed the topic to Chen Yuliang. Elder Chen, since we're talking about gang leader Shi, then let's talk about how gang leader Shi was killed. Back then, you colluded with Cheng Kuan and killed gang leader Shi, yet you still dare to stay in the gang. You really have some guts. You really have a lot of guts. Chen Yuliang's expression changed greatly. This was indeed his weak point. Although these years he had eliminated dissidents, vigorously promoted his trusted subordinates, and managed to control the Zhang and beggar clan, there were still many disciples who were dissatisfied with him at the bottom of the beggar clan. Now, if Huang Rong took the lead, the resistance that had been suppressed for a long time would erupt. Chapter 1351. When Song Qingshu arrived at the meeting hall, he saw Huang Rong pressuring Chen Yuliang step by step. After not seeing her for several months, she was still as beautiful as ever, as if time had not left any traces on her. She was still as beautiful as a young girl. Chen Yuanyuan had heard of Huang Rong's name for a long time. This time, she had come with Song Qingshu, so she carefully sized up the other party. She saw a bright and charming young woman standing there gracefully. She didn't need to do anything, but she was already very charming. In particular, she seemed to have a unique temperament that was hard to describe. No matter how Chen Yuanyuan thought about it, she could only understand that Huang Rong was always so calm and composed. She wasn't like Chen Yuanyuan, who always had to guess the thoughts of the men around her in order to get what she wanted. Thinking of this, Chen Yuanyuan looked at Huang Rong with eyes full of envy. While Chen Yuanyuan was looking at Huang Rong was also looking at her. After the initial shock of seeing Song Qingshu, her attention was quickly attracted by the woman beside him. After all, as a famous femme fatale in history, even if she covered her face, it could not hide her dazzling brilliance. This bastard always has beautiful women by his side. He really is a greedy, shameless, and lustful man. Huang Rong's heart was filled with irritation. So it's Brother Song. Guo Jing had been standing to the side watching his wife and Chen Yuliang talk, silently supporting him. Now that he saw Song Qingshu, he walked over with a face full of surprise. After all, in his heart, Song Qingshu had saved his life. Hero Guo. Song Qingshu felt ashamed in his heart. Suppressing his strange emotions, he greeted the other warmly as well. Seeing the two of them being so intimate, Huang Rong's eyebrows jumped. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not say anything. She only secretly sighed in her heart. After exchanging greetings with Guo Jing, Song Qingshu came to Huang Rong. Madame Guo, long time no see. Young Master Song is still as graceful as ever. Huang Rong's face did not reveal any flaws as she smiled and said, I heard that young Master Song was poisoned by the golden ripple flower earlier. I thought that young master had died. When others heard this, they would think that Huang Rong was concerned about him. But Song Qingshu knew that she probably meant the opposite. If I die, some people in this world will definitely be sad. Ignoring his meaningful gaze, Huang Rong smiled and said, That's true. If something really happened to you, I'm afraid all those women around you would be sad. Seeing that her smile was no different from usual, Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. It seemed that she had recovered from that incident. In fact, Song Qingshu had long been prepared for such an ending. Back in the Jin Kingdom, the reason why Huang Rong seemed to be at his mercy was mainly because what happened at that time was too shocking for her. Although she was usually resourceful, she was still a woman, and a married woman at that. This world placed great importance on a woman's chastity. If she had an affair after getting married, she would not be treated as a fickle woman like Pan Jinlian. In the beginning, that kind of thing happened in a daze. Huang Rong's heart was filled with regret and fear, causing her to be unable to use 20% of her usual intelligence. That was why she was led by the nose by Song Qing-shu. After such a long time, she must have completely calmed down and would no longer be controlled by him. As the saying goes, good people don't live long, but scourges last for 1,000 years. I'm afraid that Yama is also worried that I will seduce his wife, so he doesn't dare to take me in. Song Qing-shu deliberately emphasized the word wife, trying to see Huang Rong's reaction. God is watching. It's better for you to be careful with your words. Huang Rong obviously didn't want to talk about this with him, so she immediately returned to the topic. When I heard what you said just now, I have one thing that I don't understand. Chen Yuliang obviously rebelled and plotted to kill the former chief. Why did you say it was for the good of the beggar gang? When Chen Yuliang heard Huang Rong's public evaluation of him, a trace of deep hatred flashed in his eyes. He thought that if you didn't have Guo Jing to back you up, I would definitely catch you and torture you. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant. Seeing that Huang Rong didn't respond at all and instead questioned him in a businesslike tone, Song Qing-shu was secretly disappointed. But he quickly got rid of the negative emotions and didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, according to the beggar gang's thousands of years of system, Shi Hongshi being the new chief is actually very against the rules. Chief Huang has always been known as the female Zhuge Liang. Have you ever thought about how she became the new chief? Huang Rong frowned. At that time, Chief Shi was murdered and the beggar gang was in turmoil. Letting his daughter take charge of the situation, although somewhat against the beggar gang succession system, was reasonable. Song Qing-shu smiled. Madam inadvertently overlooked an important factor. What did I overlook? Huang Rong thought it was strange. Back then, Song Qing-shu had been ruined by Chen Yuliang. Logically speaking, the two of them should be like fire and water. Why did it feel like Song Qing-shu was speaking up for him? If it were someone else, Huang Rong would know that the other person was speaking up for Chen Yuliang. She would definitely find an opportunity to interrupt the other person and control the rhythm of the conversation. But now it was Song Qing-shu who was speaking up. She hesitated for a moment and decided to listen to what he had to say first. Madam has overlooked that the main reason why Shi Hongshi was able to become the chief was because he borrowed the power of one person. After Song Qing-shu finished speaking, he secretly sighed. He didn't know if his words would offend her if they reached that person's ears. The yellow-robed woman? Huang Rong reacted quickly and immediately understood who he was talking about. She couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Yes, Song Qing-shu nodded. Everyone in this world has a motive for their actions. Madam, what do you think the yellow-robed woman's motive is? Miss Yang helped when she saw injustice. Naturally, it was because of the justice in her heart. Huang Rong's own voice lowered as she spoke. Over the years, she had experienced the rise and fall of the gang and the cruel killing on the battlefield. She was no longer the innocent girl she used to be. Naturally, she knew that everyone had a motive for their actions. In this world, there were indeed people who did not have a motive for helping others. But that was usually a small matter. They would help others within their ability. If it involved a big matter, they would definitely think it over before taking action. And helping an orphan girl to become the chief of the beggar gang did not seem like a small matter that could be easily solved. Noticing Huang Rong's expression, Song Qing-shu knew that she had also realized something was wrong. He had to sigh that it was convenient to communicate with smart people. The yellow-robed woman is not a wild crane. She belongs to the Imperial Court's Jianshan Academy. Song Qing-shu was not in a hurry to reveal the answer. Instead, he let her think for herself because people would subconsciously believe what they deduced. So what? Huang Rong frowned. Does the Imperial Court want to control the beggar gang? But as soon as the words left her mouth, she denied this speculation. Although the beggar gang was known as the world's largest gang, it was like an ant in front of the country. The Imperial Court did not need to spend so much effort. Song Qing-shu reminded her, the reason why Ma Chi-wu was invited back as the prime minister was because the previous prime minister, Zhao Ruyu, was brought down by Han Xingzhou. Zhao Ruyu and Jianshan Academy have always been close. Because of this, Jianshan Academy suffered a terrible blow. If it was not for the help of one person, the Neo-Confucianism of the Academy would have been labeled as pseudoscience. Whose help? Huang Rong had been at the front line of Xiangyang for years. She knew a lot about Mongolia, but because she was far away from the capital, she did not know as much about the imperial court as Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu did not answer her directly. Instead, he said, whether it is Shi Huolong or Shi Hongshi, they both have the same surname. Guojing, who had been listening on the side, could not help but say, they are father and daughter. If it is not the same surname, then are they two? Seeing her husband's confused expression, Huang Rong smiled. After so many years, Brother Jing was still the same. A gentle smile appeared on her face. Brother Jing, Prince Song, means that they both have the surname Shi. Afraid that her husband would not understand and make a fool of himself in front of outsiders, she added, the surname Shi of the remonstrant officer, Shimyun. Song Qingshu smiled. Madam is indeed smart. You guessed it so quickly. Huang Rong rolled her eyes at him. You have made it so obvious. If I still could not guess it, then I would be an idiot. Song Qingshu recalled Huang Rong's gentle gaze at Guojing. He sighed in his heart. It seems that to her, I am just a passerby. Chen Yuliang was also an intelligent person and reacted quickly after receiving the hint. He hastily said, not long ago, Shi Miyuan's daughter, Shi Shangyun, came running here in an attempt to seize back the gang leader position. At that time, she even said that Shi Huolong and Shi Hongshi were sent by her father. This matter was heard by many brothers in the gang. If Chief Huang doesn't believe me, you can find someone to ask. Hearing his resolute and decisive words, Huang Rong understood that there was no need for him to lie. She could not help but be shocked. Shi Miyuan has unknowingly taken control of the beggar clan. What is he trying to do? Song Qingshu continued. Elder Chen secretly discovered the Shi family's plot to encroach on the beggar clan. He did not want the beggar clan to become a victim in the political struggle. That's why he confronted Shi Huolong. For the sake of the beggar clan's reputation, he was also afraid of Shi Miyuan's revenge. So he did not reveal the truth. He would rather bear the infamy of rebelling against his superiors and be ridiculed by his peers in the Wulian world. Hearing this, Chen Yuliang's jaw dropped. He had always been an eloquent person, but he did not expect Song Qingshu to be even more eloquent than him. With just a few words, Song Qingshu had cleansed the stain and turned it into an act of loyalty and righteousness. Huang Rong also fiercely glared at Song Qingshu. With her intelligence, how could she not see that Song Qingshu was deliberately helping Chen Yuliang get out of this? But she also understood that although Chen Yuliang was shameless, he had prevented the beggar clan from falling into the hands of the politicians. At the same time, Huang Rong also knew that Chen Yuliang was despicable and shameless. She could not let the beggar clan fall into his hands. Because the previous plan to seize power had been disrupted by Song Qingshu, she was thinking about what to do next. Suddenly, Song Qingshu said, Hero Gua, Chief Huang, we have not seen each other for a long time since we parted ways in the Jin Kingdom. Now that you have come to Lin and from thousands of miles away, I will do my best as a host to welcome you too in my humble home. Chapter 1352. Hearing Huang Rong's sudden exclamation, everyone in the room looked strange. Chen Yuanyuan looked at her and then looked at Song Qingshu thoughtfully. Chen Yuliang was curious. Why does it seem that Huang Rong is afraid of Song Qingshu? Did something happen between the two of them? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had left a big psychological shadow on her. Even now, she was still so resistant to him. Noticing the expressions of the people around her, Huang Rong's face turned red. She realized that her reaction was a little too extreme. Just as she was thinking about how to speak up to dissolve the awkwardness, Guojing, who was beside her, said, Rong of Brother Song saved our lives. You shouldn't have done this. Hearing her husband's rebuke, Huang Rong felt bitter in her heart. She thought that Brother Jing didn't know the whole story. However, she didn't blame her husband at all. After all, she was very clear that her husband was a man of reason and not family. She fell in love with him because of his integrity. The main thing is that I'm very tired from the journey from Xiangyang to Linan. When I arrived in Linen, I didn't stop to go to the headquarters of the beggar gang. Now I feel a little tired. Huang Rong thought quickly and found all kinds of excuses. What's more, Prince Song saved our lives, but we haven't even prepared a gift. Brother Jing, I think we should visit him another day. Guijing hesitated for a while. He knew that what his wife said was reasonable. Moreover, his wife's physical condition now could not bear too much fatigue. Song Qingshu smiled and said, Master Huang, you don't have to be so surprised. What kind of friendship do we have? Why do I need to care about these empty gifts? Your visit to my house is the best gift. What's more, I'm afraid you haven't settled down yet. How can living in it be more comfortable than living at home? I don't have many things there, but there are more empty rooms. You can stay at my place. Before Huang Rong had time to refuse, Guijing laughed boldly and said, Then I'll bother Brother Song. Huang Rong couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard her husband agree so readily. Brother Jing was always so defenseless. You treated him like a brother, but he was always thinking about your wife. After hesitating for a moment, Huang Rong didn't say anything in the end. She rarely made her husband lose face in front of outsiders. Moreover, she suddenly recalled the first time she met her husband. At that time, Guijing had given everything to her without a care in the world and didn't guard against her at all. When she thought of this, she couldn't help but smile gently. Seeing that they had agreed, Song Qingshu was overjoyed. It's getting late. Brother Gua, why don't you come back with me? Since Guijing was so affectionate towards him, it would be strange if he still called him Hero Gua, Chief Huang. Guijing looked at Huang Rong inquiringly. After all, they were here for business. Huang Rong hesitated for a moment. Considering that Song Qingshu had dismissed her previous questions, she knew there was no point in staying here. Moreover, she had to go back and think about the relationship between Shermyuan and the beggar gang. So she nodded slightly. Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He quickly turned to Chun Yuliang and said, Elder Chun, I'll have to trouble you with the matter before. Chun Yuliang nodded. Young master, don't worry. I'll send them here today. After leaving the headquarters, Huang Rong casually asked, May I know what young master wants Elder Chen to do? Song Qingshu smiled and said, Sister-in-law, my mansion is now full of spies sent by various forces. I always feel like I'm being watched by countless eyes all day, so I asked Elder Chun to help me find some maids and servants. The beggar gang is well informed, so this kind of thing will be twice the result with half the effort. Hearing him call her sister-in-law, Huang Rong secretly spat and thought, Why didn't you think of me as your sister-in-law when we were in the Jin Kingdom? She said, Young master and Elder Chen seem to have a good relationship. No discord, no concord. Song Qingshu knew that she was testing their relationship, so he answered ambiguously. Oh, seeing that he was unwilling to answer, Huang Rong secretly gritted her teeth. Her eyes suddenly fell on the beautiful Chun Yuan, and she couldn't help but ask, Young master, won't you introduce this sister to us? Chun Yuan was shocked. Her identity was really special. Once it was revealed, not only would she be in danger, but it would also bring countless troubles to Song Qingshu. But seeing that they were familiar with each other, it would be rude not to tell them. Just as they were vexed, Song Qingshu said, Look at my bad memory. I forgot to introduce her to you. She's a good friend of mine. Her surname is Xing, and her name is Yuan. These two are Guijing and Huang Rong from Xianyang City. Greetings, Sister Xing. Huang Rong smiled sweetly, and Guijing also cupped his hands to greet her. Although Huang Rong was smiling, thousands of thoughts were running through her mind. She had never heard of the name Xing Yuan, but with her figure and appearance, she obviously shouldn't be such a nameless person. Could it be that she deliberately used a fake name? And with her hair in a bun, she was obviously married. She was with Song Qingshu. What was their relationship? Bah, this bastard always liked to seduce good women everywhere. Greetings, Hero Gua, Chief Huang. Chen Yuan bowed slightly in return, but she was shocked. Her real name was not Yuan, but Yuan. As for Xing, it was her mother's surname. Before she knew that she was actually from the Chun family of Haining, she had always thought that Xing Yuan was her real name. Later on, a big reason why she had such a good relationship with Li Yuanji was because both of their names had the same Yuan character. Even Aka didn't know about this. How'd he know? When she thought about how she no longer had any secrets in front of Song Qing-shu, Chen Yuan felt as if she was naked. It was an extremely strange feeling. Just like that, the group chatted and soon returned to the residence. Huang Rong looked at it from afar and couldn't help but sigh. Young Master Song is truly favored by the Emperor now. I'm afraid that only a regional prince or above has the right to live in such a magnificent residence. If Madam likes it, I can give it to you and your wife. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. Huang Rong was talking so naturally, as if nothing had happened between the two of them. A gentleman doesn't take what others like, don't you think so, Brother Jing? Huang Rong lightly touched her husband. Guo Jing smiled honestly. Brother Song, if you're so polite, we wouldn't dare to disturb you. As the group of people teased each other, they suddenly noticed a beautiful girl dressed in red sitting at the door. However, there was a faint trace of distress between her brows. She had clearly noticed them and immediately got up to walk over. Fu also likes to wear red. Huang Rong was slightly dazed. It was as if she could see the shadow of Guo Fu on the girl. Judging from her clothes and accessories, she could tell that the girl was a noble lady. Seeing the girl walk straight towards Song Qing-shu, she couldn't help but secretly spit. No matter where this bastard goes, he always has a bunch of women around him. The one with the surname Song, you're finally back. The girl pointed at Song Qing-shu with her hands on her hips and said with a huff, Miss Sure, why didn't you go in and wait for me? Why did you have to stand outside in the wind and sun? Those servants are really outrageous. Song Qing-shu coldly snorted. The girl in front of him was naturally Shi Shangyun. It has nothing to do with them. I just want to see you as soon as possible. As soon as Shi Shangyun said this, the expressions of the other two women beside her became extremely strange. Even Guo Jing, who had always been careless, secretly frowned. This Brother Song was good in every way, but he was a bit too fickle. We haven't seen each other for a few days, and Miss Sure already misses me so much. Even with the two women by his side, Song Qing-shu still found it hard to change his nature of being a flirt. Hey, who misses you? Shi Shangyun spat with a red face. I came here to settle accounts with you. I've already told my father to remonstrate with you. Now that your Fei's case has been redressed, why haven't you let Brother Wei go? I let him go, Song Qing-shu shrugged with a helpless expression. Nonsense. Shi Shangyun bit her lips. In the beginning, I was worried that I would give you an excuse if I came looking for you, so I purposely waited for 2 more days. However, Brother Wei still hasn't returned. You didn't keep your promise. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. If I told you that I let him go not long ago, would you believe me? Of course not. How could there be such a coincidence? Shi Shangyun said angrily. In any case, I don't care. If I don't see Brother Wei come out safely today, I won't leave here. Song Qing-shu was speechless. If it was a normal day, he would have teased her a bit. However, right now, he had 2 peerless beauties by his side. How could he have the heart to care about this young and inexperienced apple? If you don't believe me, you can ask them. These 2 are the world-famous Guo Jing and Huang Rong. Did I just come back from the beggar gang? Puzzled, Shi Shangyun shifted her gaze to the side. Guo Jing and Huang Rong's reputation was so great that she had naturally heard of them. Sensing her inquiring gaze, Guo Jing replied, Miss, I can testify that Brother Song has indeed just returned from the beggar clan's headquarters. Huang Rong, on the other hand, frowned. Jing Ji is not scheming at all. He doesn't have his guard up against other people, so he has rashly stepped into this muddy water. We only know that Song Qing-shu is at the beggar clan's headquarters, but we don't know if he has the Wei Ji that the other party mentioned. After getting confirmation, Shi Shangyun's eyes flashed with joy. Good. I will temporarily use your surnames for once. After saying this, she could no longer restrain herself and happily left. It was obvious that she was going to find Wei Ruolin. I have made a fool of myself in front of you. Song Qing-shu ordered the maids to prepare food and wine as he apologized to Guo Jing and Huang Rong. No problem. Guo Jing was an open-minded person and naturally did not care about this matter. Huang Rong opened her mouth to ask, I heard you call her Miss Sure just now. What is her relationship with the imperial censor? As expected, I can't hide it from your eyes. Song Qing Shu smiled. This Miss Sure is the daughter of the imperial censor. She is also the one that was mentioned at the beggar gang. Chapter 1353. Although Song Qing Shu was not very satisfied with the servants in his house, they were very fast in preparing wine and food. It didn't take long for a table to be served. Song Qing Shu invited Gu Jing and Huang Rong to sit down. Chun Yuan was about to go back to her room, but he pulled her to sit next to him. It was inconvenient for Chun Yuan to keep wearing a veil when they were about to eat. Fortunately, Song Qing Shu drove the servants far away, so they didn't have to worry about being seen by others. When Chun Yuan took off her veil, the whole room seemed to become brighter and more beautiful. Even a righteous person like Gu Jing was stunned. Huang Rong sighed and said, I thought sister must be a celestial being, but I still underestimated sister's beauty. Chun Yuan blushed a little and replied, Although I'm not a martial artist, I also know that Master Huang is known as the first beauty in the martial arts world. Hearing the two women flattering each other, Song Qing Shu wisely didn't interrupt. Instead, he toasted Gu Jing and asked, Brother Gu, did you come to Linen for business or to relax? Both. Gu Jing smiled and said, Not long ago, the imperial court and the Mongols stopped the war in Xianyang. Ronger and I finally had some time to rest. We were looking for a place to relax and make up for what we owe Rome all these years. Jia Shu sent us a secret message and asked us to come to Lin, and so we came here. Huang Rong was speechless. She thought, why did Brother Jing tell the couple in such detail? He even told them that Jia Sherdao invited them to the capital. But she always knew that her husband was open-minded, and there was nothing he couldn't tell others, so she just let him be. Brother Gua and your wife have worked so hard for the country and the people all these years. You really should take this opportunity to have a good rest. Song Qing Shu was thinking that Jia Sherdao didn't invite them to the capital for a business trip, and he didn't know why. Guo Jing raised his glass and said, Last time when I was in the Jin Kingdom, I didn't have a chance to thank you for saving my life. Let's toast to you. Huang Rong cursed in her heart. I've already repaid him for saving my life. What's there to salute? Of course, there was no way for him to explain the reason. Helpless, he could only stand up and say, I'm not feeling well, so I'll drink tea instead of wine. I hope you don't mind. Song Qing Shu was startled. Sister-in-law is not feeling well? Do you want me to get a doctor to take a look? Guo Jing smiled innocently. It's nothing, your sister-in-law is just... Huang Rong hurriedly pinched her husband and interrupted him. She said calmly, maybe he's tired from the long journey. He'll be fine after resting for a while. Guo Jing looked at her in surprise. Even though he had a simple and honest personality, that didn't mean he was stupid. His wife had her reasons for stopping him, and he wasn't stupid enough to say it out loud. Seeing Huang Rong's reaction, Song Qing Shu naturally didn't want to get to the bottom of it. He drank up the wine in his glass and said, Brother Gua, you're being too polite. You've worked so hard to defend Xianyang City. You've done so much for the country and the people. Any Chinese person would have helped you in that situation. Guo Jing sighed and said, That was a close shave. I heard from Rong, afterward that you risked your life to save us. How can I not be grateful? Song Qing Shu looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect Huang Rong to say something nice about him in front of her husband. Compared to the danger you and your wife encountered in Xianyang City, my situation is nothing. Guo Jing laughed out loud. It seems that Brother Song also has a pure heart to save thousands of people from disaster. Now that the Golden Snake Battalion of the Great Song Empire is holding them back, the people of Great Song are really lucky. Looking at Guo Jing's forthright smile, Song Qing Shu felt ashamed at his heart. The more upright Guo Jing's personality was, the more apologetic he felt for what he had done in the past. To cover up the abnormality in his expression, Song Qing Shu took out a large bowl. It's too genteel to drink from a cup. That's what I was thinking. Guo Jing laughed. He grew up in Mongolia and had an amazing capacity for liquor. He was not used to drinking from a cup. Huang Rong hurriedly pulled her husband's sleeve and said, "Brother Jing, don't drink so much. I'm happy to meet Brother Song today. Ronger, don't try to persuade me." Guo Jing laughed. Song Qingshu raised his bowl to Huang Rong and said, "Madam, please help yourself. I'd like to have a good talk with Brother Guo." Huang Rong looked at him with burning eyes and asked, "Do you really think of him as a brother?" Song Qingshu was startled. He knew that she was secretly stabbing him. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Of course. I was frivolous when I was young and made a lot of mistakes. Now I regret it. That's why I especially want to learn from Brother Guo." Hearing his sincere tone, Huang Rong couldn't help but be startled. Her expression suddenly became complicated. The conversation between the two came out of nowhere, and Guo Jing was confused. Chun Yuan, on the other hand, looked at the two of them thoughtfully. Feeling their strange gazes, Huang Rong immediately smiled and cleverly changed the topic. "Since he is a brother, don't keep trying to persuade him to drink. It's not good for anyone if he gets hurt." Song Qingshu also took the opportunity to say, "Madam, please rest assured. With Hero Guo's capacity for liquor, only I will be drunk by him." Indeed, on the surface, Song Qingshu looked like a distinguished and elegant young master, while Guo Jing was a burly Mongolian man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. No matter how one looked at it, their alcohol tolerance was not on the same level. Then Song Qingshu and Guo Jing drank bowl after bowl, while Chun Yuan and Huang Rong chatted happily. The atmosphere became more and more lively. "Brother Guo, I heard that you just arrived in Linen today. I'm afraid you haven't even found a place to stay. Why don't you stay here?" Song Qingshu took the opportunity to say when they clinked their bowls. Although Huang Rong was talking with Chun Yuan, she had been paying attention to their situation. She was worried that her husband would agree after drinking too much. She hurriedly said, "Thank you for your kindness, but we have other things to do. It's really inconvenient to disturb you here." Guo Jing was stunned. When he heard Song Qingshu's invitation, he was quite moved. Originally, he planned to take advantage of this time to have a good exchange with Song Qingshu. After all, Song Qingshu was an expert in war and martial arts. If they could live together for a period of time and discuss every day, they would definitely benefit a lot. However, since his wife had politely refused, it was naturally inconvenient for him to say anything. "Is that so?" Song Qingshu's disappointment flashed across his face. He knew very well that after what had happened before, it would be strange if Huang Rong would agree. "In that case, I won't force you. Come, Brother Guo, drink." After a while, Huang Rong suddenly frowned and said quickly, "Sorry, I have to go out for a while." After that, she covered her mouth and trotted out. "Madam, is it okay?" Song Qingshu looked at Guo Jing worriedly. Unexpectedly, Guo Jing, who had always loved his wife, smiled and waved his hand. "It's okay. Don't worry about her." Hearing him say this, Song Qingshu had to suppress the doubts in his heart. Huang Rong ran outside to the garden and leaned against the railing to retch for a while. Then she wiped the corner of her mouth with a tired face. When she was about to turn around, who knew that someone was standing behind her? She was so scared that she hurriedly took a few steps back. "Am I really that scary?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Huang Rong did not answer him. Instead, she frowned and said, "Brother Song, why did you come out?" Song Qingshu sighed. "There are no outsiders here. Do we need to talk like this?" "You're right. Why don't we need to talk like this? I have nothing to say between you and me." Huang Rong's expression became cold and directly walked towards the house. Song Qingshu subconsciously grabbed her hand. "Wait." Huang Rong's expression suddenly changed. "If you don't let go of me, I will call you Brother Jing. I have a few words to say to you. When you're done, I will let go." Song Qingshu was still holding her arm. "The reason why I followed you out is that there are some things that are not convenient to say during the dinner. You don't agree to stay here. I am afraid that I will not find a chance to say it to you in the future. Huang Rong pulled a few times and found that it did not move. She blushed and whispered, "Just say it. Let go of me first. What if they see us?" Song Qing-shu also knew that if the two of them were to be seen pulling each other, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. He hurriedly let go of his hand and said, "This time, I sincerely apologize for what happened in the Jin Kingdom." Previously in the Jin Kingdom, Song Qing-shu was like a demon, exuding that kind of evil aura. Huang Rong did not expect that he would suddenly become so kind, and she could feel that his tone was extremely sincere. However, Huang Rong was not a 3-year-old child. How could she forgive him so easily? She replied coldly, "What happened in the Jin Kingdom? I don't remember." That's right. If an apology is useful, there is no need for constables in this world. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "I know that you still hate me in your heart. No matter what I say, you will not forgive me. This time, I did not come here to ask for your forgiveness. I just want to tell you that I will not disturb your life as a husband and wife in the future. Please rest assured, I will always keep that matter in my heart as a secret and will not let a third person know." With that, he sighed and turned to leave. Hearing his words, Huang Rong's eyes became extremely complicated. Suddenly, there was a feeling of annoyance in her chest and abdomen. She could not help but lie on the railing and vomit again. Hearing the movement, Song Qing-shu hurriedly turned around and was shocked to see her in pain. He hurriedly held her and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Huang Rong pushed him away and said, "I am fine. You don't need to worry about me." "How can you be fine? How many times have you vomited since just now?" Song Qing-shu said anxiously, "No, I will call a doctor to help you. I said I am fine, so I am fine." Huang Rong could not help but feel a little angry. Perhaps because of the excitement, her cheeks were slightly red. After that, she pushed him away and planned to go back. Suddenly, Song Qing-shu noticed her slightly bulging lower abdomen. His mind flashed, and he asked, "Are you pregnant?" Because she had been wearing loose clothes, and the extent of her lower abdomen was not very exaggerated, Song Qing-shu had not noticed it before. A trace of red flashed across Huang Rong's neck. "So what?" Song Qing-shu was suddenly surprised and happy. "Whose child is it?" Chapter 1354. Song Qing-shu didn't know why he was so excited when his wife was pregnant. He trotted behind her in surprise. "How many months old is the baby? Is it serious? Do you like spicy food or sour food?" People often say that sour children are spicy. Huang Rong listened to him with black lines on her forehead. She didn't pay attention to him, but she finally couldn't help but ask, "Are you done?" Song Qing-shu was at a loss. "Who told you not to answer me?" Huang Rong replied coldly. "Why should I answer you? It's my and Jing Ji's child." Then she walked away without looking back. Song Qing-shu was rendered speechless by her words. By the time he regained his senses, she had already disappeared from his sight. Although he knew that Huang Rong's words made sense, he couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. He had lived 2 lives and never had the experience of being a father. Now that he suddenly learned that he might have a child, how could he not be excited? How could he not lose his composure? Worried that others would see something wrong when he went back, Song Qing-shu continued to stand in the same place. He took a few deep breaths before he could barely calm down. At this time, his brain could also think calmly. In terms of probability, his guess really didn't make sense. It was completely a whim, no matter how he looked at it. Huang Rong's pregnancy was a matter between the husband and wife. What did it have to do with him? With this thought, he finally completely calmed down, but his face inevitably showed a hint of disappointment. When he returned to the table, he found Guo Jing carefully supporting Huang Rong out. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be shocked. "Brother Guo's sister-in-law, what are you doing?" Guo Jing looked apologetic. "Brother Song, Rong is not feeling well. I have to take her back to rest." Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, "Since sister-in-law is not feeling well, then she can rest here. Someone, quickly prepare a room." At the same time, he secretly smiled bitterly. Was he so terrible that Huang Rong actually found such an excuse to avoid him? No need. Huang Rong hurriedly said, Brother Song, thank you for your kindness, but we have something to do tomorrow morning. We won't disturb you here. Jing Ji Ji, let's go. Feeling the determination in her tone, Song Qingshu knew that he couldn't make her stay, so he had to bow and said, In that case, I won't force you. Since sister-in-law is not feeling well, I will arrange a carriage to take you. Thank you, Brother Song, Guojing said gratefully. The couple got on the carriage and thanked Song Qingshu. When they went far away, Guojing couldn't help but ask, Rong, why you didn't rest at Brother Song's house? Huang Rong smiled bitterly. How could she tell him the real reason? She had to find another reason. Jing Ji Ji, have you forgotten our identities? She asked. Our identities? Guojing was confused. Huang Rong had to explain, We have been guarding Xiangyang for years and cooperated with LV Wendy. LV Wendy is Jia Shidao's trusted subordinate, so we have been marked by Jia Shidao in the eyes of the world. Song Qingshu is very close to Han Xingzhou. I heard that the house was given to him by Han Xingzhou. If we live at his house, what will Jia Shidao think of us? Guojing's brows furrowed as he heard this. I'm an upright person, and I have a clear conscience. I don't care what he thinks of me. Huang Rong shook her head. It is better to offend a gentleman than to offend a villain. Song Qingshu is a gentleman. She wanted to say that Song Qingshu was a gentleman, but thinking of what had happened in the Jin Kingdom, she couldn't say it. She had to change her words, saying, Song Qingshu is our friend. Even if we offend him, we won't take it to heart. But Jia Shidao is cunning and vicious. If we accidentally offend him, I am afraid we will be in big trouble. Guojing slapped the wall of the carriage and said angrily, I am guarding Xiangyang for the Han people, not for Jia Shidao. How can I be on his side? Huang Rong hurriedly said, Brother Jing, General Yu's mistake is not far away. Do you want to make the same mistake? Seeing that her husband was silent, Huang Rong continued, Brother Jing, the court has always been like this. Even if you don't think you are on Jia Shidao's side, Jia Shidao's political enemies will still see you as a thorn in their side. Instead of facing enemies on both sides, it is better to be under Jia Shidao's protection. After all, he is the privy envoy of the court. With his help, weapons, pay, and soldiers can be allocated in time. It will be much more convenient for us to guard Xiangyang. Guojing sighed. Ronger, you are right. For the people of Xiangyang City, I don't mind being wronged. Huang Rong smiled and said, Then when we go to the Jia mansion tomorrow, you have to control your stubbornness. Don't talk back to Jia Shidao. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Guojing looked at his wife's beautiful face and couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, Ronger has been teaching me all these years. With a wife like this, what else can I ask for? Brother Jing, I'm not as good as you think I am. Touching her bulging belly, Huang Rong couldn't help but sigh. The expression on her face was inexplicably complicated. Guojing didn't notice the difference in his wife's tone. In my heart, Rong is the best in the world. Meanwhile, Song Qingshu quietly stood at the door and looked into the distance. He didn't move his eyes until the carriage disappeared into the street. Suddenly, he heard Chen Yuanyuan's strange voice. She has gone far away. Song Qingshu came back to himself and couldn't help but smile awkwardly. What? You miss her? Chen Yuanyuan stood beside him and looked at him with a faint smile. Don't talk nonsense. Song Qingshu's face turned red. His relationship with Huang Rong had violated a taboo. If it was exposed, then no matter if it was Huang Rong or himself, both of them would lose their standing and be condemned by everyone. Thus, he was extremely cautious and did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Chen Yuanyuan shook her head. Young master, there is no need to deceive yourself. Just now, you and Chief Wang occasionally looked at each other. You can hide it from the careless and careless Hirogua, but you can't hide it from me, who is also a woman. Song Qingshu was shocked, but he immediately reacted. Although his behavior was a bit strange, how could a smart woman like Huang Rong leave anything that could be used against him in front of Chen Yuanyuan? She must have been tricking him. Thinking of this, Song Qing-shu immediately relaxed. It would be good if we really had a relationship. Chief Wang is beautiful, and I don't have such good luck with women. Hearing his natural tone, it was Chun Yuan's turn to be surprised. She was really just testing him. A woman's sixth sense told her that there must be something between the two of them. Coupled with the taboo of their identities, it made the fire of gossip burn in her heart. In fact, she also knew that it was not a good idea to expose this kind of thing. Originally, she had already resisted the urge to ask, but when she saw the usually carefree Song Qing-shu standing at the door like a stone looking at his wife, she didn't know where the impulse came from, but she directly blurted it out. Song Qing-shu understood the principle of being defensive for a long time and knew that if he let her continue asking, it would be hard to guarantee that he wouldn't give himself away. Therefore, he grabbed her wrist and walked into the mansion. "Come, drink with me." "Hey, let go, you." Feeling the warmth of the man's palm, Chun Yuan couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She kept hitting him, trying to pull her hand out, but unfortunately, it didn't move at all. Pulling Chun Yuan back to the table and sitting down, Song Qing-shu finally let go of her hand. As he poured wine, he smiled and said, "Madam's hand is quite slippery." In order to divert her attention, Song Qing-shu returned to his previous frivolous personality. Chun Yuan's face turned cold. "Gongzi, please conduct yourself." Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. "We are all friends. There is no need to be so polite. Come, let's drink together." Hearing that they were friends, Chun Yuan's expression became better. "I've been cultivating these years and don't drink." Song Qing-shu didn't care so much. He took a glass of wine and stuffed it into her hand. "What does it matter if you are cultivating?" In the early years, there was a senior monk who said, "Wine and meat pass through the intestines, but Buddha sits in the heart. As long as your heart is firm, why should you be constrained by those external forms?" Chun Yuan looked at him in surprise. Which senior monk would say such absurd words? Divine monk Daoji of Lingyin Temple. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "That's why I said he is a senior monk, and you are just cultivating. But I really can't drink." Chun Yuan still refused. Song Qing-shu sighed. "I'm feeling a little down, and I really want to drown my sorrows in alcohol. However, it's too boring to drink alone. Madam, as my only friend, can't you accompany me?" Chun Yuan hesitated for a while and finally nodded. "Okay, but I can only drink a little." Song Qing-shu couldn't help laughing. "Madam, you're the top of the 8 beauties of Qinhuai. How can you only drink a little?" In the future, the women in the nightclubs all had a capacity for drinking 1,000 cups without getting drunk. This kind of thing was passed down from the same origin, and now it was certainly not much different. Chun Yuan's expression changed. She picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp. She laughed at herself and said, "You are right. Who doesn't know how to drink?" Song Qing-shu finally reacted. He couldn't help but look apologetic. "I didn't mean it." Chun Yuan chuckled and poured another cup of wine. "I know you didn't mean it. I'm just more sensitive about it. Forget it. Just watch me drink." Song Qing-shu hurriedly took the cup from her hand and drank it in one gulp. Seeing him put the cup that she had just drunk into his mouth, Chun Yuan's face blushed slightly. "It doesn't matter. Just take it as me thanking you for saving my life." Song Qing-shu suddenly looked disappointed. "Ah, people say that saving a life should be repaid with your body. Madam, drinking a few cups of wine with me is enough to repay me?" Chapter 1355. Looking at Chun Yuan's gem-like eyes, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. He couldn't help but ask, "Why am I an exception?" Chun Yuan looked into the distance, and a trace of reminiscence appeared on her face. "In the past, I was forced to drink with others, but this time I was willing. Don't you think this is an exception?" "Of course it is." Song Qing-shu smiled. "It even makes me feel flattered." Chun Yuan smiled sweetly. "Since you are flattered, do you have anything to say?" "What does Madam want me to say?" Song Qing-shu asked curiously. Chun Yuan raised the wine glass in front of her. A trace of slyness flashed in her eyes. "Gongzi is a great hero who is famous in the world. I'm just a weak woman who can't drink. If you drink one glass and I drink one glass, isn't it too unfair? Looking at her sly and quick-witted eyes, Song Qing-shu remembered that the woman in front of him used to be the most beautiful woman in Qinhuai. She was a femme fatale who charmed countless men. He couldn't help but smile. Does Madam want me to agree to drink one glass and I drink one glass? Chen Yuan sighed faintly. Judging from Gongzi's tone, you are obviously unwilling. Song Qing-shu shook his head. If you didn't say it, I would have taken the initiative. But since you said it, I am not willing to drink like that. Chen Yuan asked curiously why. Song Qing-shu filled his own glass and replied, I treat Madam as a friend. Why does Madam want to use the methods that you use to deal with others to deal with me? It's full of tricks. Chen Yuan was startled. Then she smiled. Sure enough, not having used it for many years has caused me to regress. I actually forgot that what men care most about is a woman's different attitude towards him. Song Qing-shu clinked his glass with hers and drank it in one gulp. Just now, Madam successfully made me feel that feeling of being different. Unfortunately, I later realized that it was just a trick. Chen Yuan chuckled. Gongzi deliberately said that you were wronged. Isn't it also a trick? Song Qing-shu smiled calmly. Just some words from the bottom of my heart. Okay. I'm scared of you, Chen Yuan said coquettishly. One for you, one for me. Is that okay? Unexpectedly, Song Qing-shu shook his head in a serious manner. Madam should punish herself with 3 cups of wine to show her sincerity. Chen Yuan's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were sparkling. She looked at him with a faint smile. When I was in Qinhuai River, I also met a lot of people like you. They tried all kinds of ways to persuade me to drink more. Do you have the same idea as those men? Previously, when he saw Chen Yuan, she had always been clean and focused on her cultivation. Now, seeing her smiling and talking sweetly, but dealing with the situation flawlessly, Song Qing-shu felt as if he had seen the beauty that could turn all living things upside down in the past. Some men persuade a woman to drink more because they want her to get drunk so that they could take advantage of her. Some men persuade a woman to drink because they want her to let down her strong guard, completely relax, and open up to communicate like a real friend. Which kind do you think I am? Song Qing-shu gently shook the wine cup in his hand and looked at her quietly. Hearing his words, Chen Yuan was slightly stunned, as if something touched her heart. But she quickly recovered. Although I don't know which kind you are, I know you are a cunning man. Thank you for the compliment. Song Qing-shu didn't feel offended. Instead, he smiled happily. Since you regard me as a friend, then I will drink with you as a friend. Chen Yuan had just come out of the palace. She only felt that her future was blank. She also needed to drink some wine to relieve some pressure. As for getting drunk and being taken advantage of, which woman from Qinhuai River didn't have a great capacity? Although she usually didn't show off, her capacity for alcohol was definitely above average. Next, the two of them drank one glass after another. Although the conversation between the two of them was full of vigilance and probing at the beginning, after they really started drinking, the two of them seemed to have let down their guard. Song Qing-shu was thinking about Huang Rong's pregnancy, and his heart was filled with all kinds of emotions, so he drank one glass after another like drinking water. Chen Yuan, on the other hand, suddenly thought of the first half of her life where she wandered from place to place. Her life was filled with sadness, and coupled with the fear of the unpredictable future, she would drink with Song Qing-shu every time he raised his glass. After who knew how long, Song Qing-shu suddenly turned around and saw Chen Yuan's delicate and beautiful face. Her eyes were also watery, with a trace of a blurred luster. He couldn't help but sigh. You're really beautiful. Although she had heard too many similar praises, now hearing Song Qing-shu's sigh from the bottom of his heart, Chen Yuan was still very happy. But not long after, she suddenly thought of her age, and her expression suddenly became gloomy. It's a pity that I can't resist the power of time. No matter how beautiful I am, I will age in a few years and eventually become a pink skeleton. Feeling the decline in her tone, Song Qing-shu also couldn't help but sigh. Since ancient times, Beauties are like famous generals, not allowed to see their white hair in the world. In his previous life, Li Jiaxin and Guanjilin were so stunning when they were young. They were recognized as the two most beautiful women in the history of Hong Kong. It could be said that they were at the level of femme fatale. Unfortunately, as they grew older, they were no longer beautiful. Now, although Chen Yuanyuan was still stunning, it was obvious that she had reached the end of her peak. In another 10 years, no, maybe in another 5 years, her beauty would greatly decline. Song Qingshu's heart ached when he thought of the scene of a beauty past her prime. Beautiful things were gifts from the heavens, works of art in the human world. It was too cruel to watch such works of art being destroyed before his eyes. In his previous life, Song Qingshu could only watch helplessly as the two great beauties Li and Guan Jilin lost to time. But in this world, he suddenly realized that he was not helpless. "Madam, do you want to maintain your beauty and youth forever?" Song Qingshu suddenly raised his head and looked at her with a burning gaze. Who knew that Chen Yuanyuan didn't have the slightest bit of excitement? She only smiled lightly. Eternal beauty and youth only exist in legends. Why does young master even believe in this? Song Qingshu shook his head. Immortality is indeed impossible, but eternal youth is not necessarily. Chen Yuanyuan smiled faintly. I've been studying Buddhist scriptures these years, and I've also understood the principle of beauty. I've also become less concerned about my appearance. Moreover, all my misfortunes in this life are caused by this appearance. It may not be a bad thing for me to grow old and lose my beauty in the future. Is that so? Song Qingshu looked at her strangely. Madam, why do you have to say one thing and mean another? The reason why you are so indifferent is because you know that you can't maintain your youth forever. That's why you are deliberately comforting yourself. Before Chen Yuanyuan could refute, Song Qingshu continued to ask, Madam, have you heard of Misty Peak's Spirit Vulture Palace's Heavenly Mountain Tonglao? Heavenly Mountain Tonglao? Chen Yuanyuan shook her head blankly. This name is so strange. This Heavenly Mountain Tonglao is over 90 years old. Song Qingshu smiled. Madam, do you know why she is called Tonglao? Seeing that he was deliberately showing off, Chen Yuanyuan softly said, Young master, don't keep me in suspense, seeing that she was acting like a spoiled little girl. Song Qingshu's bones softened. He hurriedly replied, The reason why she has this nickname is because although she is over 90 years old, her appearance is similar to that of a teenage girl. That's why she's called Tonglao. How is that possible? Chen Yuanyuan's red lips were slightly agape. Her face was full of disbelief. Indeed, in the mind of a normal person, how can a 90-year-old woman look like a teenager? That's the truth. Song Qingshu shrugged. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao practiced a miraculous technique. It's extremely powerful, and it can slow down the speed of the practitioner's aging. At the same time, it can rejuvenate once every 30 years. Rejuvenate? Chen Yuanyuan covered her mouth. Clearly, this sounded like a fantasy to her. This is actually a side effect of this technique. It's similar to qi deviation. However, in my opinion, this side effect is much more meaningful than the martial arts itself. Song Qingshu could not help but think of the words legal lowly. That's right. If this is true, then all the women in the world would probably go crazy for it. Chen Yuanyuan nodded subconsciously. If she knew the indescribable thoughts in his mind, she would probably not agree so much. Of course it's true. I also know that technique. Song Qingshu said proudly. Although she knew, Chen Yuanyuan subconsciously distanced herself from him. With a strange expression, she asked, You're not. You're also over 90 years old? Song Qingshu almost fell down. He replied angrily, More than that. I'm already 100 years old. Little girl, be good. Quickly call me uncle. Chen Yuanyuan's heart skipped a beat at his strange tone. It was as if there was really an old pervert standing in front of her seducing her. She could not help but blush and spit. Bah, you're so impolite. At this point, how could she not know that he was deliberately teasing her? That divine technique is called the eternal youth art. Song Qingshu paused and looked at her with a burning gaze. "Madam, do you want to learn it?" Chen Yuanyuan's heart skipped a beat. Although she wanted to say no, when she heard the words eternal youth, her heartbeat sped up. After all, no woman could resist the temptation of eternal youth. After hesitating several times, she finally squeezed out a word in a low voice, "Yes." After saying that, her face flushed with embarrassment. Just a moment ago, she was still speaking righteously about the pink skeleton. She did not expect that she would be exposed so quickly. Song Qing-shu said hesitantly, "But there's a very important problem. This martial art is too profound. Even an expert of Nan Murong's level doesn't have the qualifications to practice it. Forcefully practicing it will only lead to qi deviation and sever meridians." Ah! The excitement on Chun Yuanyuan's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by endless disappointment. "Then, doesn't that mean I can't practice it at all?" She did not know any martial arts at all. She was not a martial arts genius. If she started learning martial arts at this age, she would probably never reach Nan Murong's realm in her entire life. Moreover, Nan Murong did not have the qualifications to practice it. "Madam, don't be discouraged." Song Qing-shu comforted her. "In fact, the most important condition is a deep inner force. I have a method to quickly increase your power." Chapter 1356. What is it? Although Chan Yuanyuan vaguely felt that Song Qing-shu's eyes were a little strange, she still couldn't resist the temptation of eternal youth and asked. The red light in Song Qing-shu's eyes became even more intense. As he drank, he revealed a devilish smile. There are only 3 ways for a person who has never learned martial arts to obtain deep inner energy in a short period of time. The first way is to take a natural treasure, which can often add decades of inner strength. However, natural treasures are too rare, and only a few people in Jianghu have seen them. In addition, natural treasures are most effective for people who practice martial arts. People like you, who don't even have meridians blocked, won't be able to absorb the medicinal power in it. Most of it will be wasted. The second way is to use the northern underworld divine skill of the Xiaoyao sect or the star-sucking skill of the Sun-Moon sect. It can absorb other people's inner strength for your own use. Unfortunately, these 2 methods are too harmful. No one wants their hard-earned inner strength to be absorbed by others. Therefore, these 2 methods are regarded as evil by people in Jianghu. Those who practice it will easily become the public enemy of Jianghu. The third way is to find a martial arts master and let him willingly impart his inner strength to you. After imparting his inner strength, that master will often exhaust his essence and blood and die soon. Who in the world is willing to sacrifice themselves like this? After listening to Song Qing-shu's explanation, Chen Yuanyuan looked disappointed. "It seems that I have no hope in this life." "Not necessarily." Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. Chen Yuanyuan looked at him in confusion. Song Qing-shu then continued. "The martial arts I practice are very magical. I can impart my inner strength to a woman when I'm intimate with her. At the same time, I don't suffer as much loss as other kinds of inner strength imparting. Are you interested in trying it, madam?" Chen Yuanyuan was stunned at first, thinking that she had misheard. However, when she saw the evil look in Song Qing-shu's eyes, she finally understood that she had not misheard. Her face was so red that it seemed like blood was about to seep out. She said coldly, "Young master, please behave yourself." After saying that, she got up and walked out. Who knew that Song Qing-shu would grab her wrist and pull her into his arms? "Let me go." Chun Yuanyuan struggled to get up, but it was a pity that other than bringing a burst of pleasure to the other party's body, there was no other effect. "Madam, why are you in such a hurry to leave? We haven't finished drinking yet." Song Qing-shu pinched her chin with his fingers, took a glass of wine, and moved it to her rosy lips. Chen Yuanyuan was embarrassed and angry at the same time. She had not expected the other party to suddenly become like this. Just as she was about to scold him, she raised her head and met a pair of demonic eyes. A trace of confusion suddenly flashed in her eyes. Does Madam really not want to stay young forever? Song Qingshu's voice seemed to be near and far at the same time, so illusory and unfathomable. Yes, although Chen Yuan felt that something was wrong, she still answered mechanically. Does Madam hate me? Song Qingshu lowered his head and asked in her ear. A blush appeared on Chen Yuan's neck, and she subconsciously shook her head. I don't hate it. Since you don't hate me, and I can let you stay young forever, why do you reject me? Song Qingshu's fingers slid across her face. He felt that the tender feeling on his fingertips was truly soul-stirring. Chen Yuan's body also trembled, and she murmured, I don't know, Before she could finish, Song Qingshu had already kissed her, forcing the rest of her words back in her mouth. Whoa, Chen Yuan's body stiffened. She was just about to reach out and push him away, but her mind was a mess. Her outstretched hand instead hugged his shoulder, and her whole body gradually softened. Hugging her hot and alluring body, Song Qingshu also felt that his body was getting hotter and hotter, especially when he thought of her identity that could turn all living things upside down. His heart was incomparably excited. He couldn't help but feel his breathing quicken as he explored her body. After an unknown amount of time, light footsteps came from outside the door. A maidservant stuck her head out to look around. Song Qingshu suddenly looked up and said coldly, Didn't I say that no one is allowed to disturb this place? This servant is just here to ask if there is anything else you need here. The maidservant's eyes flashed as she replied timidly, Nothing. Without my order, no one is allowed to take a step near this garden. With that, Song Qingshu waved his hand, and the two doors closed with a bang. The maidservant also felt her body being carried by an invisible force. When she recovered from her shock, she found that she was already several feet away. I wonder which side spy she is. Song Qingshu frowned and thought, if that bastard Chun Yuliang still didn't send her over, you would have a good time. After this small interlude, Song Qingshu regained some of his rationality. Suddenly, he heard a moan coming from his arms. Looking down, he saw Chen Yuan looking at him with a pair of wide, watery eyes. Her previously dignified clothes were now completely disheveled, faintly revealing the snow-white cleavage of her chest. What made Song Qingshu's pupils contract even more was that his hand was currently in her lapel. That warm and soft touch in his palm didn't need to think to know what he was pinching. What's going on? Song Qingshu was stunned. It took him a long time to sort out the whole thing. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Before, they were still talking about the problem of the heart demon. He didn't expect it to appear again at this time. Maybe it was because Huang Rong's pregnancy had shocked him too much, or maybe it was because Chun Yuan was too beautiful, or maybe it was some other reason that caused a flaw to appear in Song Qingshu's heart. The heart demon that had been lurking for a long time naturally wouldn't let go of such a great opportunity. In an instant, it used its desire to destroy his rationality. Fortunately, during this period of time, his cultivation was getting higher, and he had a deeper understanding of the side effects of the blissful Diana. So, when a maidservant interrupted him, he woke up. If it was in the past, he would probably have to wait until he completely vented his desire before he could wake up. But if he did that, the heart demon would unknowingly grow a little stronger. Why is it that I'm becoming more and more like the evil king, Shi Xuan? Song Qingshu was having a headache. He didn't want to become that psychopath with schizophrenia. Qingshu. At this time, Chen Yuan suddenly let out a sweet voice, which made Song Qingshu's body swell up a little again. Looking at her curled up in his arms like a cat in heat, with her mesmerizing body vaguely visible under her messy dress, Song Qingshu recalled that he seemed to have used the soul transfer spell on her just now. At this moment, Chun Yuan could be said to be obedient and let him do whatever he wanted. Chen Yuan seemed to be a little uncomfortable, twisting around his arms. Although there were only 2 layers of clothes between them, her round and plump body made Song Qingshu's scalp tingle. Why don't I make the best of it? Anyway, she's been affected by the soul transfer spell, so she won't remember what happened afterward. At the thought of keeping this world's most beautiful femme fatale in a mansion, getting along normally during the day, and at night, treating her as a bed partner to play with without any responsibility. She would have no idea. A trace of red gradually appeared in Song Qingshu's eyes. Fortunately, the current Song Qingshu was not the same as when he had just transmigrated. After 2 years of tempering and growth, his will had become firmer and firmer. Only then could he suppress that tempting thought with great perseverance. Pulling his hand out of Chun Yuanyuan's clothes, Song Qingshu deliberately turned his head to the other side to avoid looking at her. After a long time, he finally calmed down. He turned back to help Chun Yuanyuan tidy up her messy clothes. Unexpectedly, Chun Yuanyuan took the opportunity to grab his hand and press it on her chest. "Qingshu, I'm so hot." Perhaps it was because he had experienced too many ups and downs in his life. When Song Qingshu saw Chun Yuanyuan, the femme fatale who was once the most beautiful woman in the world had become a quiet hermit with a heart as still as water. Usually, she looked dignified and gentle, but at this moment, she seemed to have become that peerless beauty again. Her voice was coquettish, and her moist red lips matched with her slight panting. Even an enlightened monk would not be able to resist the temptation to return to secular life if he saw her. Song Qingshu took a look, and his nose started to bleed like it was free. He almost lost his mind and was controlled by his inner demons again. He quickly sealed Chun Yuanyuan's acupoints before he calmed down. "Fortunately, I didn't inject the joyful genuine qi into her body just now. Otherwise, things would have gone out of hand." Song Qingshu rejoiced. Although it was every man's dream to have sex with a beauty like Chun Yuanyuan, under such circumstances, Song Qingshu could not help but feel uneasy. Song Qingshu closed his eyes and organized his words for a while. Only then did he undo Chun Yuanyuan's soul transfer technique, and at the same time, unsealed her acupoints. "What happened just now?" Chun Yuanyuan opened her eyes and asked blankly. "We were just talking about how to increase our power. Who knew that you would suddenly be distracted, so I woke you up." Song Qingshu answered without a blush on his face. "Is that so?" Chun Yuanyuan frowned slightly. She vaguely felt that something was wrong. After thinking carefully, she suddenly said angrily, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." "Why do you say that, madam?" Song Qingshu was shocked. Oh no, could it be that she still had the memory of what happened just now? Chun Yuanyuan blushed and turned her head away. "I just want to say that I won't accept your method." Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that she only remembered this. That's good. That's good. Madam, don't misunderstand. The method I said just now was deliberately used to test madam." "Deliberately test me?" Chun Yuanyuan asked curiously and couldn't help but turn her head back. "Yes, if I didn't do this, how would I know madam's character?" Song Qingshu couldn't help but admire his own adaptability. "Madam also knows that with my current martial arts and reputation, coupled with the power in my hands, there are many women who will use various means to get close to me. I must eliminate those women with bad intentions." Chun Yuanyuan felt very wronged. She thought that she was obviously being teased by him, but in the end, she became a scheming woman. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She directly stood up, so in young master's heart, Yuanyuan has always been this kind of woman. I also don't dare to ask for a snub. I will leave now. Song Qingshu hurriedly pulled her back. "Madam, please don't be angry. It was me who gauged the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure. I will apologize to you, okay?" In this world, men were superior to women. There were very few men who would take the initiative to apologize. Looking at the other's apologetic eyes, Chun Yuanyuan couldn't help but be in a trance. She muttered, "I am only a woman, not some gentleman." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.